Brands Hatch is the venue for round 2 of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. It's a fabulous circuit, it's a real driver's track this, and we are in for 2 fabulous races this weekend. Last time out, it was all action at Zolder. The main race had Lamborghini on pole position, Mirko Bortolotti a little slow away from the line. Audi jumped briefly, but Bortolotti was back ahead as the cars poured their way through turn 1. Others less fortunate. There was contact at the very first corner, and Robin Frins had traffic all around him as he tried to carve his way through the pack. There were cars sporting damage on the opening lap, bodywork rubbing against tyres, but the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari was really in strife. An early puncture for Michael Broniszewski's car, forcing that into the pit lane and out of contention in Pro-Am. Andrea Caldarelli was charging on in the Grassa Racing Team Lamborghini. He had Robin Frins behind him, but he was also closing on Carlo Van Dam, and there was a great 3-way battle until the Lamborghini squeezed through on the inside at turn 1. The 2 Italian cars trading places. Up front with an 8-second lead was Mirko Bortolotti as the pit stops loomed. Bortolotti would come in to hand over to Christian Engelhardt, who had trouble with his belt. And number 2 of Dries Vanthoor blasted away in the lead, but taking some of the pit lane cones with him. Badly delayed was Engelhardt, still in the pit lane, losing chunks of time. A mechanic in the pit lane meant that there would be a drive-through for number 63 Lamborghini and a drive-through for the Audi as well for clattering the cones. Into the lead came Stein Schotthorst. There was another good fight going on lower down as Robin Frins and Stewart Leonard's car tried to get up the order. Vanthoor lent on Simon Gachet going through turn 1 and got a second drive-through for his pains. That meant it was a race win for Attempto and Stein Schotthorst and Kelvin van der Linde. Second across the line, the ACA ASP Mercedes of the Brit Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. But there was delight for Schotthorst and van der Linde. Audi won at Zolder. Audi also won the Endurance opener at Monza. So here on home soil, Will Stevens is looking for a good result with his WRT run car that he shares with the demon fast Dries Vanthoor.
Yeah, it should be good. Zolder got off to a good and a bad start in a way. The first race we finished P2, which was a great way to start the year. The second race we were leading before Dries made a small mistake leaving the box. He went over some cones, so we felt like that was a race win which got away. So yeah, overall a positive start, our pace was strong, and heading to Brands, my home track, it should be a really strong race. Audi's always good here. Last year we had a 3rd place, so we're confident heading into the weekend.
The Lexus, run by Emil Frey Racing, is getting better and better all the time. The car becoming more competitive, and although it's in its infancy, this project, you can see the potential, and so also can one of the men behind the wheel. That is Albert Costa, and he is looking for good results here on a real driver's circuit. Is the Lexus well suited to Brands Hatch?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, everything is new, not only for the driver's mode, it's also for the team. And it's a very old school track. It's very tight. It's very difficult. A small mistake you have, you can go to the grass because it's very there is no option to do any mistake. And yeah, all the teams are here. It's been a lot of years before like racing here. They have a lot of experience. They've been in the sprint and endurance for many years. And we are a small team. We are not factory. We are private, and we're still learning. We're still developing this new car. But I believe with them, we have a huge people around. So we need time only. Just please wait.
Stewart Leonard and Robin Frins didn't have a great start to the season at Zolder, but here on Leonard's home soil at Brands Hatch, he's hoping for better fortune. And here is somebody who becomes increasingly competitive round by round. So what can he do for a race win at Brands Hatch?
I have been here quite a lot. It's kind of like, I guess, my home track, so I do generally feel quite comfortable here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it'll be. It's a fun, exciting place, and not a lot of room for mistakes. Last year, actually, it kind of hit me. I think Hungaroring, which is the second to last round, that we were in a strong position. I think we had 2 DNFs in the first 2 rounds, so we came back from that really strong. I think this year we've been more consistent with points and results. I think we can do better. and I hope we will together.
After a season in the Endurance Cup last year, Yorkshireman Josh Cahill is in the Sprint Cup this season with Team Parker Racing and the original Bentley Continental GT3, and he's loving being back in the cut and thrust of sprint racing.
Yeah, the track definitely suits us a lot better here at Brands Hatch. Zolder wasn't our strongest place to start, but hopefully we can start the year from now and yeah, have a good result. We're both pretty relaxed guys and we just want to sort of help each other and do the best we can. So yeah, definitely we work well together and just trying to keep improving all year really.
We're used to seeing Andrew Watson in a McLaren in the Endurance Cup, but for the Sprint Cup he's in the 3Y Technology BMW. The car has struggled a little bit across free practice, but the team is optimistic for better results come race day.
Yeah, Brands Hatch is probably one of my favourite tracks in the world. It's weird getting a train to a racetrack for a change. But yeah, I mean, I've won races here when I was learning in Ginetta GT Super Cup, so I have a lap record here. So there's a lot of good memories for me, and it's yeah, favourite track on the calendar. And I know the BM's good here, so yeah, really looking forward to this weekend.
In terms of livery, this is the most spectacular car on the grid. It's a very quick Ferrari from Kessel Racing, hustled by Carlo Van Dam.
I think what you see from last year, we really made another step. For PT, everything was new, the circuits, even some of the circuits for me were new. And I think everything fits in well this year, and on every area we're a step better than last year, so I believe we can stay ahead in the Pro-Am.
Somebody with huge amounts of experience of circuit and car is Pierre Catholic. He drives for the Attempto Racing Squad, and he could well be on the top step of the podium this weekend.
It's an old-fashioned racetrack, and this is what I love. This is something how it should be also for the other racetracks, and that's the reason why I'm really looking forward to be here with the Audi and Peter and to race this weekend. I think Brands has such a history that it's an honor to be here.
Michael Meadows made his name really in the UK as a double Porsche Carrera Cup champion, but now behind the wheel of a Mercedes, he's one of the real stars of the Blancpain GT Series. Could he take a home win?
It's great to be at Brands Hatch. You know, it's a great track. I think all the drivers love it, especially the GP circuit. So hopefully we'll have some good pace. You know, I think we did quite well at Zolder, scored some points and got on the podium. If we can repeat that here, then we'll have a good weekend.
The sun is shining and the cars will shortly be released onto the grid in readiness for race one here at Brands Hatch, the first of the 2 hour-long races that we have today. This is the lap, the circuit, the full Grand Prix circuit, relatively unchanged from the very early days of the place.
The biggest changes are on the outside of the circuit. There is greater runoff around all the corners of Brands Hatch. If you raced here in 1964 or maybe even earlier when the Grand Prix loop was opened, you wouldn't recognise the circuit. You'd say, they've taken the character away from Brands Hatch. But make no mistake, this is a proper old school, and I'm going to emphasise it, racetrack.
And it's one that the drivers absolutely love. So, coming into this first race, of course, after 2 races at Zolder, it is Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Schockhorst who lead the championship from Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt, more of whom in a moment. Dries van Thor is third with Will Stevens after picking up his penalties in the second race at Zolder. Then you've got Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows fourth. Ezequiel Perez Companc are fifth, along with Andrea Caldarelli. And then it's Stewart Leonard and Robin Frins, who is missing this weekend. He's on duty elsewhere. So let's have a quick look at the grid then. We've seen the cars, just to remind you who starts. Pole position is Dries van Thor, Stijn Schockhorst is alongside. Row 2 is Michael Meadows, and then alongside will be Alex Rivera. Christopher Mies to take over, another strong car. Third row, it is Peter Schockhorst and Nico Bastien heading the Silver Cup alongside. Then Stewart Leonard will start 7th on the grid, and Norbert Siedler for company ahead of the Mercedes of Nicolas Jamin. 9th and 10th on the grid is Christian Kleen in the second Lexus. Ezequiel Perez Companc comes next. Andrew Watson, the Northern Irishman, alongside. Then it's Timon Gachet and Loris Hezemans in a car shared with a very fast Ronc Pereira. The Audi, though, has Christopher Hassler as the second driver, so that should make progress late race as well. Then you've got Josh Cahill and Aaron Taylor-Smith. Cahill starts, as does Piti Pierre-Bachty alongside. Then it's Ian Loggie's Bentley and Neil Stevenart with Marcus Winkelhock for company. Back row is Vladimir Atuev and Christian Engelhardt, who is going to be the one to watch over the opening corners to see what progress he can make. Down towards clearways they come then, the drivers, and they are briefed, of course, every weekend to do this properly, get into the side-by-side Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. They have to go across the white lines. You can't be jutting out side-by-side. Penalties could come that way. We saw it happen quite a bit last year. It's up to the front row drivers of Dries Van Toor and Stijn Korthols then to control the pace. The lights go green. Race 1 for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch is go, and a very good start by Van Toor, a slow start by Stijn Korthols in the contrast as they go into paddock for the first time. It's going to be Audis 1 and 2. Michael Meadows drops back a little bit in the pack as well. What about Engelhardt? He's gained 1 spot going up through paddock. They round Druids for the first time. Korthols trying to retaliate then as they come now through Druids, but Dries Van Toor it is who leads the way. This is Michael Meadows' view. Started third and he's down in 4th place. Alex Rivera was on his toes in the number 1 Audi, and he's managed to move up the order.
Yeah, good move by Rivera as the Lamborghini bang over. And look at Christian Engelhardt off the racetrack. I mean, well, he didn't gain anything, so there shouldn't be any penalties, but obviously pushing very hard, very early to try and make up ground.
He lost out, didn't he? I think he actually lost places by the rally cross, and it was Hezemans going on the grass ahead. And there we've got already off the road 35 from the back of the grid, Vladimir Atuev. That's up at Druids. We're still under the green. Now the screen's changed to safety car and yellow flags, and the message will get through to the drivers. Safety car is on track. Hold your position. Replay of the start. Just talk us through this, John.
Okay, front row of the grid, side by side, waiting for the green light to go out. Once the green light goes out, the drivers have been told they are allowed to accelerate beyond the 80 kilometers per hour, but Dries Van Toor got it absolutely perfectly. Michael Meadows in the Mercedes was just marginally ahead coming into paddock, but the Rivera's Audi seemed to manage to find space on the outside. Tricky to do. Look at the way Dries Van Toor shuts off the entry in, so Shorthouse had to back out of it. But there was contact. We don't know whether that was contact or just somebody losing it. Watch now the tail of the field on the outside. The Bentley absolutely slams into the side of the 63 Lamborghini. Not intended, just happened to be on the outside trying to make up ground, and that's the penalty. If you put yourself there, then watch on board. Here we see Christian Engelhardt now moves out. Oh, it was actually the Bentley he was passing was alongside him. We were looking at the second of the 2 Parker Bentleys.
We're ready to go racing. The order is Dries Van Toor ahead of Stijn Korthols. Rivera is 3rd. Michael Meadows is 4th. In 5th place is Nico Bastien. In 6th it is Peter Korthols as the green flag is ready on the start line. You can't overtake until you get to the timing line, which is now. We go racing, and Van Toor leads by half a second as he storms into paddock. Korthols is 2nd. Rivera's 3rd. Meadows 4th. 5th is Bastien. 6th is Peter Korthols. Round paddock, and now the climb up towards Druids, but Dries Van Toor is on a mission to try and get away here.
Yes, and he had all the opportunities in his favour. He was able to wait and go when he wanted to do so, and did that very effectively. Just coming into clearways then through Clark Curve, and has got the advantage again, that clear air. But the 66 Audi is not letting the number 2 Audi get away that quickly. So the gap between the 2 cars, in fact the gap between the first 3, but Rivera's in the 3rd of those 3 Audis. These 3 cars are going to have a big race amongst themselves. It's Nico Bastien in the 5th car behind Michael Meadows in the 2nd of the 2 Mercedes, looking to come up and get alongside down into Hawthorne's corner. Michael Meadows under pressure from the sister Mercedes.
Well, the side-by-side on the outside is the Lamborghini. Brave stuff, and Christian Engelhardt swoops around the outside.
Again, Nico Bastien really giving Michael Meadows a workout into Surtees, and clearly Bastien is able to tuck the nose in that little bit neater in the apex, but again coming down this straight. Top speed 240 kilometers per hour. Whoa! Bastien just getting a little bit loose under braking, is downshifting into Hawthorne's bend.
Now this is the move. Engelhardt trying to sort out the sister car of Perez Compact up the road ahead of him. Comes out of Druids. They're side by side. In fact, Perez Compact gets ahead of Hezemans, and Engelhardt gets through as well.
Yeah, I think that may have been a message clearly from Grasser Racing to say to Lawrence Hezemans, look, these 2 drivers behind you were much quicker. Again, looking on board from Christian Engelhardt, quicker driver than Perez Compact. Compact slightly makes an error coming under braking. That gives an opportunity for Engelhardt to get down the inside. He does. Again, maybe you might call that a tactical maneuver by the young Argentinian in the number 19, but job is done.
Now Engelhardt, 13th, catching Andrew Watson. The last lap for the Lamborghini was 9/10 quicker than the last lap of the BMW, and there they are. Look, the gap is coming down and down and down. Christian Engelhardt charging along behind the Bas Linders Ram 3 wide technology entered. BMW M6, they're dropping away as Perez compact behind. He's now down in 14th place. 15th is Hezemans. 16th is the Bentley of Josh Cahill. But Andrew Watson's going to be under attack any moment.
And the Lamborghini Perez compact runs wide.
Did that there yesterday, didn't he?
Did.
Yeah.
He didn't. He managed to stay on the grass this time.
Andrew Watson doing a great job of defending, isn't he? Christian Engelhardt trying everything, but Andrew Watson goes a little bit wide now. Engelhardt one side, then the other. Andrew Watson is under pressure, but he's doing a great job of defending, and Engelhardt getting a bit more frustrated now. Tight line out of Westfield. Is he up the inside? Has he got the grant? Yes! Through he goes. Christian Engelhardt goes through, and into the pits early comes the race leader, Dries van Toor, to give way right at the start of the window to Will Stevens.
That was unexpected. The race leader, I thought, may have stayed out that little bit longer, but they've decided to bring in Dries van Toor. But we just witnessed a real bit of motor racing between Andrew Watson having to defend and Christian Engelhardt doing everything that he could possibly do with the Lamborghini, and have finally made that pass down through Dingle. In fact, that car 63 has also come in. So we're seeing the best part of almost half the field now making pit stops at the earliest opportunity.
Yeah, Andrew Watson in as well. So that's Will Stevens away, but I'm surprised that they brought Van Toor in so early. Stewart Leonard's car is in the background. Now let's see what a Will Stevens lap is going to be like relative to Raffaele Marciello, who's taken over there from Michael Meadows. You see Pittibier on back at his Ferrari in to give way to Carlo Van Dam. As away now goes Frederic Verviche, the pole sitter for race 2 in the grey and yellow Audi.
And he's behind the Mercedes.
Yeah, indeed, as he was before the stop, so that car doesn't lose. Track position is maintained. He's probably actually closer to the Mercedes because that would have dropped a long way back earlier. And you've got Mirko Bortolotti then in for Engelhardt, blasting out of the pit lane as well.
It's a fairly, I would say, cautious opening lap. So he wants to get a feel for the car, a feel for the tyres. There's the second page. Can this car get in, through and out? It looks like it's moving down the pit lane as Will Stevens comes on the racetrack. So Will Stevens has maintained the advantage. Yeah. And the 66 Attempter racing car will come out in second place with the number 1, I think, coming out directly behind it.
That's right. So Christopher Mies then goes through, and Raffaele Marciello is going to be 4th. The one that's gained, I reckon, is 17 Audi, because now Fred Verviche will be up into 5th place. So number 90 Mercedes drops back after Nico Bastian's good first stint. Now we need to have a look at the gaps between them, which we'll get next time through. And the Lamborghinis just get themselves back in the original order. Bortolotti ahead of Andrea Caldarelli there. That is Scott Horst out and Pierre Catholic in. Tyres about to be changed. As 66 then, Kelvin van der Linde chases, sideways off the curb, chases after Will Stevens.
Nico Bastian has done all that he can do. The car will be handed over to Jack Manchester. Interestingly, there's about, I put it in inches, 6 inches difference in height. Yet Jack Manchester can sort of wrap himself around like a python, getting into the wheel, the steering column, the seat, the belts. How they do the belts, I don't know. That's very weird. But anyway, something maybe about the different body lengths. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Supple young bones as well. They're more malleable. This is the race leader. Will Stevens then up towards the line, but have a look behind him because the second Audi is the real chaser. Jack Manchester down the pit lane. He'll blend back in as through goes Stevens, through goes van der Linde. The gap is 2.2 seconds. That lap is 8/10 quicker by the South African than the Brit.
It certainly was.
Sector 1, Will Stevens responds a little bit. He's fractionally faster than is Kelvin van der Linde, but that gap has come down from over 4 seconds to 2.2. Christopher Mies still hustling on in 3rd spot as well. The Emil Frey Racing guests are watching what's going on for the Lexus pair. The Mercedes, Felix Morales, hard on the brakes late into paddock, and right onto the tail of Pierre Catholic, rides the curb, demolishes the floppy marker on the inside, and that might be a track limits query, but you can't argue with the commitment, can you? So Will Stevens leads the way, and Kelvin van der Linde has done some of the hard work. He's caught, but now the next part of the process has started. Where? How does he find a way past?
I thought maybe he was a little bit closer coming into Paddock Hill Bend to look to make a run up the inside into Druids, right under the rear wing of Will Stevens. Audi comes out, the gap pretty much constant. The number 66 will have to wait for the one to accelerate, then you catch up as this sort of seesaw effect. Both cars running wide at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend on their absolute limit. Looks up the inside again to try and just continually distract Will Stevens. But Stevens has done a good job and not letting the 66 Audi get into his head any more than it is.
Dries van Toor looks on in the WRT pit bunker. And things are about to change for Christopher Mies as well, look, because only 8/10 back from him is Raffaele Marciello. The leading 4 now covered by 1.6 seconds. And when we started talking about this, it was over 7. This is Marciello's view. Look, all the Audis ahead of him. Now, he has been able, like Kelvin van der Linde was earlier, like Christopher Mies has been, to catch up. But then you get this problem of being stuck. You can't find the width to get past. The BOP works to equate the cars, so your advantage disappears once you catch up to the pack ahead. How, if at all, can Marciello get through the traffic here?
Well, Raffaello is one of these drivers, I can assure you, is not going to waste time. He wants to catch. If he knows he can get closer to Christopher Haas.
5 minutes and 38 seconds on the clock, which is ticking down and down and down. The gap, 11/10, covered 4 cars starting this lap as they work their way now up towards the Clearways and Clark Curve approach. Down they come. So up front remains Will Stevens. Is it going to be the British driver to hang on to a great win? Well, 5 more minutes remain. Let's see. Through they come. Raffaele Marciello still hunting down Christopher Mies, who is hunting down Kelvin van der Linde, and it's Will Stevens leading by half a second this time. So that gap has stretched a little as they work their way through paddock. Drop down the hill, climb to Druids, everybody running wide, and Marciello into the gravel with 2 wheels there. That proves the commitment. Scott Horst looking rather nervous in the pit bunker at the Attempto Racing squad, Akinaka's team. So the pressure is still on, and Dries van Toor is feeling it. There's nothing he can do. I'm still intrigued to know. Maybe John will find out post-race why it was a shorter stint from Dries. But Will Stevens is the race leader and comes up towards Sterling. Lap 38, he led by half a second coming onto this lap. There is Fred Vervisch, look, barreling along in 5th, almost up with Marciello's Mercedes. Vincent Voss looking ever so nervous. The brain trust behind the WRT outfit, along with Thierry Tassin himself, like Vincent, former very successful racer. And the leading cars then come up towards the line, but dare one suggest this time, as the gaps open up a little, the drivers are starting to realise that they just are not going to be able to make progress unless a mistake comes ahead. The gap between 1st and 4th has collectively widened. And now, are they settling? Are they thinking about preserving cars, gaining points out of this race and getting ready for race 2? Let's see. Marciello is 4th, still hustling on though, best he can. Downhill they swing now through the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend, and we've got a yellow flag out in sector 2. Now, is this going to change things? Somebody has had a drama in the sector they are now in. Let's try and find out who it is, where it is in a moment. We know it's none of the leading cars because they're only now coming into this zone of the lap. And that's your answer. Oh, Jack Manchester, the class leader, the Silver Cup class leader, has spun it away at Sheen Curve and he's in the gravel. And we've got time for 1 more lap at the end of this, and Jack Manchester is going no further, seemingly. So, yellow flags will wave. There it is, at Sheen Curve. The Mercedes is off the road, and Jack Manchester, I'm afraid to say, is out of the class lead that had looked so good, having spun the car into the gravel bed, and it looked as though that was all on his own. Now, all of a sudden, leader gets away, and 2nd and 3rd together. So van der Linde has to go defensive, and Christopher Mies tries to get up the inside as they come through to start the last lap. They're going to be side by side past the pits as van der Linde got a problem because the Audi goes through, and Marciello tries to follow suit on the inside of paddock, and there's contact between the 2 of them. Wide goes van der Linde, through goes Vervisch as well. 2nd to 5th. Marciello was a bit robust, but he had to seize the opportunity. He was going to get through anyway, I would have thought, but there was a run between them. But what caused the time to be lost for Kelvin van der Linde? Was it a problem? Because he'd certainly dropped away from the leader, and suddenly it was easy picking for the traffic behind him. So Christopher Mies goes up to 2nd and makes it a WRT 1-2. Marciello gets up to 3rd as they come out of Surtees now. Vervisch 4th, and 5th is Kelvin van der Linde. Can he do anything to fight back? I don't think he can. It just looks as though that car has lost pace. Now, granted, the contact at paddock won't have helped the situation, but there was something that was causing him to drop away anyhow, and that now gives Will Stevens a big lead going on to this final few corners and the final lap of what has been a very lively race indeed. Through they turn, past Jack Manchester's car, then now down towards the left-hander at Sterling's. Speed builds down towards Clark Curve. It is going to be a 3rd different winning crew in 3 races because Dries van Toor and Will Stevens are going to come through to win race 1 at Brands Hatch in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. The winning margin, 11/10 of a second. Dries Vanthoor is delighted. Second goes the way of Christopher Mies and Alex Rivera, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows third. Fourth, Fred Vervies and Stewart Leonard. And fifth, dropping back on the last lap, Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Skrotthorst. And here, a drag race to the line, and it's a change. Felix Terrales takes 5th place ahead of Pierre Catholic by 18 thousandths of a second. And in fact, that was for 5th, not 6th, because van der Linde with a puncture comes through in 8th place. And it wasn't, as far as I can see, on the side of the contact. It was the left rear corner. And so Kelvin van der Linde has taken the flag, but it looked as though the tyre was going down, and it's now gone down. And this was the move for 2nd place. So now we know where the pace had disappeared to. The tyre was going down. Through on the inside goes Christopher Mies. Marciello up the curb. Contact between the two. Tempted to say it was just one of those things, really. Van der Linde was putting up as best a defence he could, but with the tyre going down, the car was never going to handle perfectly, was it? Through on the inside goes the Audi. Marciello up the curb. And actually, that shot suggested it was barely a brush. From the outside, it looked a lot worse, but it is Will Stevens and Dries Vanthoor, winners of race 1 at Brands Hatch, with John Watson.
Dries, a bit of a walk in the park in reality for you this afternoon.
It's never easy, but you know, the car was running well, like it's always doing, actually. Yeah, I'm really happy. I mean, what we lost in Zolder, we got back here, and yeah, I mean, Will did a great job. I don't think it was his easiest stint, but he just did no mistake, and he kept him behind, and yeah, really happy, really happy.
Well, Will, you were under pressure pretty much all from the minute you got into the car. That was one of the best drives I've ever seen from you.
Yeah, you know, to be honest, this weekend we've been super fast on the Indy part of the track and struggling a little bit around the back, but you know, where I'm strongest is out front and making no mistakes. I didn't make one, and I was pretty comfortable out in the front, to be honest. They had the pace at the start, but I knew once we got into a rhythm we would be strong. So super happy. Dries did a great job at the start, and we need to keep racking up the wins.
Both did a great job. Well done.
So 2nd place to Christopher Mies and Alex Rivera, as they're the winners, celebrate with the team. Let's go back down to John.
Alex, it looked to me like the opening drivers had a relatively nice day at Brands Hatch. Sun, shine, not too much traffic.
Yeah, life was a bit easier for us in the first stint. You know, I was starting P4 on the outside. It's my first time here in Brands Hatch, so it's always tricky. But I managed to overtake one position in the first corner on the outside. It was quite a good way to start the race. And then finally, you know, Chris did a great stint. It was a great battle to watch from the box. And yeah, P2, it's fantastic also for the championship. So really, really happy.
Christopher, I was coming down from the commentary booth, so I missed your pass. Was that close your eyes and think of Germany?
It was quite tight on start-finish. He didn't give me much room, but in the end, I could make it stick. It was a long, hard race. If you're battling for like 30 minutes, it's quite exhausting. And I'm happy for the team that we scored a 1-2. It's really good for the championship for team and drivers. It's really, really good.
Well done, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Race results confirm a win for Dries Vanthoor and Will Stevens, ahead of Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies. 3rd, Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello, the first non-Audi home, ahead of Stewart Leonard and Fred Vervies. Up to 5th, Nicolas Germain, Felix Terrales, ahead of Peter Skrotthorst and Pierre Catholic. Simon Gachet and Christopher Haas 7th, and down to 8th. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Stijn Skrotthorst and Kelvin van der Linde from the Lexus, and Norbert Siedler and Stefan Ortelli. And into the top 10, Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti from Clean and Costa, and then Perez Companc and Caldarelli to round out the first dozen. And that now means the championship looks like this. Dries Vanthoor and Will Stevens are 4.5 points up on Kelvin van der Linde and Stijn Skrotthorst, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows. Then come Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies, ahead of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. Stewart Leonard with different co-drivers over Zolder and Brands Hatch is on his own. Next, ahead of Nicolas Germain and Felix Terrales. Ezequiel Perez Companc and Andrea Caldarelli are ahead of Robin Prince, who was at Zolder but not here. Frederic Vervies here but not Zolder is 10th. And then it's Alessio Picariello, Gilles Magnus, ahead of the disappointed Peter Skrotthorst and Pierre Catholic. Christopher Haas, Simon Gachet come next, ahead of Alexis Cornille. The trophies are being brought forward, and for the third place drivers, the trophies handed over to Michael Meadows, the British driver, and Italian Raffaele Marciello. Now for 2nd place in this WRT 1-2. There is the trophy for Christopher Mies, the trophy also there for Alex Riveras, and the team trophy for WRT. But it is going to be a British driver on the top step. Will Stevens wins with Dries Vanthoor here at Brands Hatch. The trophy is presented. and the winning drivers hold the trophies aloft for the photographs, and now, inevitably, there is the champagne. The celebrations are underway at Brands Hatch, for Will Stevens and Dries Van Toor, and for the Belgian WRT team that has taken honours in this opening race. Can WRT do the double at Brands Hatch? One of its cars starts on pole position. Welcome along, everybody, to another hour of drama in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. David Addison trackside, John Watson down on the grid, soaking up the sunshine. It is a very hot day indeed here. A bit of a welcome breeze, but a big crowd enjoying the sunshine. Most untypical British bank holiday weather. The track temperature 35 degrees, and the drivers strapped into the cars for the opening stint are going to be very warm indeed by the time they get underway. The race start will be a blessing for them. At least a bit of cool air might be able to come through the ducting for them. The race itself, an hour long, it's got the mandatory pit stops, and the countdown is underway. The grid is just starting to take shape. The last few cars coming into position. The grid based on a standalone second qualifying session, not like last year where there was a qualifying race to determine the grid for the main race. Now they're standalone sessions for races 1 and 2. This is the Grand Prix circuit with that drop through paddock, the climb to Druids, the hairpin, the twisty Grand Prix loop out through the woods and back through Clark Curve up towards the start and finish area. 9 corners in total, 3.9 kilometres long, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and one that the drivers love. It's an old school circuit. There's limited runoff. There is limited width of the road, but if you get it right, it is very rewarding indeed. Pole position claimed by Frédéric Verviche. He shares with Stewart, Leonard, and on the grid with them is Watty.
Frédéric, pole position, actually the fastest single lap of the entire weekend so far.
Yeah, I'm super proud. I mean, I'm very happy to join Stewart for this race with the WRT Audi. We always know the Audi is a good car here, like we saw in race 1. Yeah, super proud to be on pole.
Now, Brands, we know, is a wonderful racetrack. Memories going back longer than you were born. But it's difficult to pass. But what is the value? Simply, what is the value of being in pole here?
I mean, I think you just said it. It's so difficult to pass here without having any damage. So starting on pole is track position, and that's our job for today. We have to keep our track position.
Stewart, assuming Fred does his job, brings the car back in the lead, hands over to you, are you going to get your elbows out to maintain that lead?
Of course, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain where we are.
We know it's difficult to pass. I don't know what's going to happen. We saw a really very close finish to race 1 earlier on today. I mean, is that what you're going to be expecting?
Yeah, I would. I think so. Yeah, but like I said, I'll do everything I can to keep the position. It's always tight, particularly in this championship, so it'll be exciting.
I'm going to talk to the Mercedes next door and see they want to mug you into turn 1, don't they?
Yeah, I think they will try, but we're up for the challenge.
Up for the challenge?
100%.
Say it again.
We're up for the challenge.
I like it. Good man.
So there's the official word from Frédéric Verviche. We're up for the challenge. And alongside, the Mercedes in question is going to be that of Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows, which in itself is a very quick car. Marciello, as you might expect, was a real star in race 1. Big screens here showing the action for the fans and people catching themselves on the camera. Now, Michael Meadows, Raffaele Marciello then line up on the outside of row 1.
Michael, you had a little bit of mid-race, mid-corner understeer in your stint. What have you done to dial it out?
I don't know really, that's the engineer.
You do know, don't tell me you don't know. You know exactly what you've done.
We just get told to do a better job and drive it faster, so generally I think when the car's, the second stint is when the car's a bit lighter, that goes away, so Raffaele might be his problem from now on, and I'll have the oversteer car, but we'll see.
Do you like oversteer, understeer or neutral?
I think everyone likes neutral, don't they, but a bit of oversteer around here is not a problem to help it turn in the high speed stuff, so I mean in this race it's difficult because you're really dependent on if there's a car in front, you're really dictated by their pace anyway. You know, if you get too close, you get understeer, and that's the problem.
So look, front row of the grid, it's a sort of it's a sprint up into Paddock Hill Bend. Never an easy first corner on the first lap.
No, obviously I lost out in the first race and lost a place to the number 1 car. Lello's second now. Hopefully he can do a mega start and get to the lead, but if not, you know, we'll try another method later on. But the start is crucial. You know, this track's so narrow for a GT3 car that it's all on the start really, particularly for the first stint.
I mean, just you've been in this situation before. I mean, what are the strengths that the Mercedes has over the Audi on that rolling start?
I think they're relatively even in terms of straight line speed. Obviously, the leader dictates the pace, so that's their advantage. Obviously, the Mercedes has really good torque, so hopefully when the lights go out and put the foot down, we can out-drag them. But it's such a short run. But you know, I think the advantage of the car generally, Mercedes has really good downforce in the high-speed stuff out the back, so hopefully we can maximise that. We've been fast there all weekend, so I think that's our chance.
Now, Raphael is not afraid to sort of, lean on somebody if he has to do it. Is he prepared to do something like that in the paddock?
Yeah, I mean, this year his overtakes have been really good at Zolder and here, so yeah, I'm sure he's fully aware that if it takes some leaning, then that's what he'll do.
Looking forward to it. Many thanks.
So Michael Meadows, I think it's fair to say, is also up for the challenge and conscious that it's not going to be an easy race. This is the point the drivers make. We all say it's great to have these cars at Brands Hatch. They look great around here, and the circuit, especially on a day like this, looks fantastic, but it is difficult to overtake, and that's the problem. You come from Monza, which has got some very wide bits, some very fast bits, and it's easier to overtake around. That was the last Endurance Cup round 2 weeks ago. You come here, and it's a totally different type of circuit. It's another old-school Grand Prix circuit, but one that just can't expand because of the local geography. Let's go to the grid.
Mirko, it was a difficult start to the day, having to start at the back of the grid, but second row now, much easier to work your magic.
Hope so. The starting spot is definitely better than this morning, even though we did really a good race in race 1, actually getting into the points, which was our goal, but it looked difficult on this track, but we made it, so we're happy with that top 10 spot this morning, and now we have another race to go. Much better spot to start, and yeah, let's see what we can do.
You've got a Mercedes in front of you, an Audi to the right, another Audi to your right. Where has your car got strengths over the other two brands? Where can you find a way past these two cars?
It's a tricky one. I think that we got absolutely everything out of the car in quali, so those cars were quicker. Looks like it's hard to find a strength point compared to them, but we will try to make a good performance and, if possible, to jump them.
Well, anything after what you did in qualifying yesterday, anything is going to be possible.
It is, always possible.
Before race 1, Marco Bortolotti said there isn't a corner you can't overtake at anywhere, and that's the right attitude. So he is prepared to get stuck in, and this time starting 4th on the grid. Christopher Mies lining up 3rd in the number 1 Audi on the inside of that row. The 3rd row, Kelvin van der Linde, who was going so strongly in that second stint in the opening race before the tyre started to deflate, and then he lost out right at the very end, fell back into 8th place. So then we've got the grid lined up. Time for a stroll through. Frédéric Verviche lines up on pole position. Raffaele Marciello is alongside as race director Alain Adon, with a green flag in hand, moves out of harm's way. Christopher Mies will start number 1 Audi, and the green and orange Lamborghini is in the hands of Mirko Bortolotti on the second row. Calvin van der Linde, all tyres inflated, is in the Audi that will start on row 3. The Attempto racing car lining up alongside Christopher Hasse there in the Santilok entry alongside the sister Santilok car. Number 26 there on the left as you look is Marcus Winkelhock, and the Lamborghini alongside, started by fearless Frank Pereira. On the next row of the grid is the Puerto Rican driver Felix Morales. Alongside him is the quicker of the two Lexus, that in the hands of Albert Costa. Next up comes Pierre Cathlic's Audi, and it is Stefan Ortelli alongside in the second of the Emil Frey Racing Lexus. Next up, Andrea Caldarelli, number 19 Lamborghini, and alongside is number 2, the race 1 winning car. Will Stevens will start. It's a long way back on the grid, and there is work to be done ahead of Carlo Van Dam in the Castle Racing Ferrari. Callum McLeod, British Formula 4 champion years past, he is in Ian Loggie's Bentley for Team Parker Racing alongside. Go back a row, Jack Manchester starts the Mercedes that he spun in the gravel with in race 1. Alongside him is Aaron Taylor-Smith, former touring car race winner. He has lots of touring car supporters here this weekend. And then the back row, Lucas Moraes, who was excluded from race 1 for ignoring the black and orange flag. And if we quickly spin round, you'll see the Mercedes of Alexei Kornev, which is just out of shot on the left. And that was a car that was given a penalty in the opening race for personnel in the working area as the car left after the mandatory stop. You can have the car controller and the first driver walking away, but you can't have any other personnel, and the team did, and therefore a penalty. Big cloud of smoke out of, I fear, Callum McLeod's Bentley, though, as it fired up, but the engines are now running, and it will be, of course, a rolling start. So at the front is the pace car, and in front of that is the race director. And Alain Adon will, on instruction from race control when we get to the allotted second. Wave the flag, release the cars, and we will be ready for another stonking hour of action around Brands Hatch. The Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup has been a regular visitor to Brands for the last 5 years. It always delivers action, and it's a challenge for the drivers, it's a challenge for the teams, and if you can get a good result out of this, especially having to do some overtaking, you have really, really earned it. The cars will be released very shortly. We've got the 15-second to the formation lap legend up on the screen. And so down on the grid, you're looking at the front row, but just ahead, the pace car as it is leaves the line. The green flag waves. Alain Adon gets out of harm's way up against the pit wall as the cars accelerate past him. And there is Mirko Bortolotti, number 63 Lamborghini. And there at the very back is the Mercedes I was mentioning a little earlier. So away now goes Alexei Kornev, the Russian driver who had a big accident in that car in free practice one, came out of Stirling's, rode the curb, spun around, head-butted the wall, and a lot of damage was done. So Fred Verviche lines up toe-to-toe with Raffaele Marciello. The run to paddock going to be crucial. Behind them will start Christopher Mies and Mirko Bortolotti. 3 different brands within the top 4 on the grid. Then comes Calvin van der Linde's Audi, the sister car out of the Audi stable, but a different team of Christopher Hasser ahead of its team car. Marcus Winkelhock at the wheel, and then Pereira's Lamborghini. Next comes the Mercedes of Felix Morales and the Lexus of Albert Costa. Behind them there's Pierre Catholic and then Stefano Ortelli lining up alongside the sort of car he used to race, the Audi R8. Andrea Caldarelli lines up alongside Will Stevens. Will only 14th. Let's see what progress he can make. It's going to be tough. Carlo Van Dam's Ferrari lining up alongside Callum McLeod alongside in the Bentley. Next up, Jack Manchester trying to make amends for his race 1 demise. Aaron Taylor-Smith is with him. At the back row is the Andrew Watson and Lucas Morais BMW. Morais will start, and it's Alexei Kornev to line up alongside them as the cars now turn their way up through Hawthorne. They'll turn towards Westfield. It's a bumpy right-hander, it's a fast right-hander. The fans are ready, the teams are ready in the pit lane, and we are ready just about to go. It has been a very warm time down on the grid. The drivers in the cars getting ready to go racing. Track temperature is up, ambient temperature is up, tension is up. John, it's going to be another great race.
Well, my temperature's up too, having just walked. You can't believe I think I broke the record from paddock up the way into the commentary booth, but
welcome back.
A magic day. I mean, the grid is really as warm, you cannot believe. Temperatures up, track ambient temperature. Nobody really knows what they're going to have to cope with once this race gets underway.
John, you're always quick round Brands, nothing has changed. So the cars now, they come down towards clearways, they'll get themselves in this side-by-side formation for the rolling start. And remember that you can't jut left or right, you've got to go over the painted grid boxes on the track. You've got to do that, otherwise penalties will come. Stewart Leonard watching his car on pole. Michael Meadows watching the Mercedes that will be there on the outside of row 1. It is Verviche who lines up on pole alongside Raffaele Marciello. This is going to be a test of who is the braver and who has got the heavier right foot. On the way up towards Paddock Hill Bend, you've got the Audi starting then on pole position. Alongside is the Mercedes. We are just about good to go racing. In peels the safety car. 60 minutes of racing. Race 2 for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch about to get underway. The lights on red at the moment will go green now. We're racing, and a great start is made by Verviche. Nowhere near as good out of the blocks is Marciello, who suddenly has to think about defending, because up on the inside line there to take the place away goes Christopher Mies. Marciello is down to 3rd, he's wide, he's in the gravel, back onto the circuit. How much does he lose out of all of that? Bortolotti tries to work out which way to go. He's 5th, the Druids almost cars into the back of him. There was some contact, I think.
And one of the Lamborghinis has gone off on the entry into, there it is, on the entry into Druids.
Caldarelli,
contact.
Andrea Caldarelli, and there's more drama coming down the hill. Both Bentleys are off the road. There's going to be a yellow flag zone, certainly, because there's been mayhem coming out of Druids down to Graham Hill Bend. We'll pick it up in a moment as the leaders go through Surtees, but I'm afraid to say there's one off at Druids and 3 cars have crashed coming downhill for the first time.
And Raffaele Marciello has been relegated back from 2nd to 4th. He got it all wrong at the start. He didn't anticipate the flag, and it's a yellow flag.
Safety car deployed, safety car on track. And it all has happened coming out of Graham Hill Bend. It looks to me as though it's both of the Bentleys. Aaron Taylor-Smith was off the road. I think Alexei Kornev is off as well in his Mercedes. There it is. And look further up, you'll see Callum McLeod's Bentley there. That's both of Stuart Parker's cars out of the race.
Very expensive car park on the exit of Druids. Where they got together, how they got together. One thing, we know what happens when teammates get together. That makes headlines. A shame for Parker Racing. They've done a great job with these 2 Bentleys. Let's look again and see. It was messy coming out. Contact with the...
Oh,
yeah. Space bound. Well, the one was... The 2 Bentleys the 32 car was spun into the 31 Bentley.
Right, that was Carlo Van Dam making contact with Andrea Caldarelli, and out of the corner, McLeod gets turned around. Aaron Taylor-Smith has got nowhere to go. He goes right into the path of a spinning car. Alexei Kornev involved in all of that as well. Well, we know what's going to happen. The stewards are going to be busy. They'll be calling them up left, right and centre after that.
And the big loser has got to be Raffaele Marciello, who was on the front row of the grid. Fred Verviche was given the opportunity and he went, and Marciello was not prepared for that almost anticipated start, and consequently going up into Paddock Bend got caught first of all by the 66 Audi, and then Christopher Mies likewise. There is the Lamborghini, and Pierre Catholic, that car will be pulled back safely behind the barrier. That was the first of the victims that we saw. Marciello could have been one of the victims, the first victim, because he had almost 4 wheels off the racetrack at the exit of Paddock Bend, but he managed to claw it back onto the racetrack. But the gap had been opened up and he had lost momentum, and that's where the second and third places went for him.
Big disappointment, because Callum McLeod, minding his own business, got turned around. Was it the Jack Manchester Mercedes that was into the back of him? Where were they together on the grid? Well, Manchester, yeah, he was behind McLeod on the grid and ahead of Taylor-Smith, so kind of in that area. We'll have another replay, I'm sure.
Certainly,
being retrieved.
He did certainly get turned around, and that's then spun him into the sister car, the 31, and
Now let's see if we can have a look at the start just further up the road, because Mirko Bortolotti started 4th on the grid. We'll have a look at his start, and as the cars go up towards Westfield, John, this is the go.
So Mirko Bortolotti's pace is really restricted by that of the car ahead of him. That's Raffaele Marciello, and he was slow off. Now I think he didn't anticipate the pace of Fred Verviche. Now on the outside of Paddock, watch what happens. He's run wide, almost 4 wheels off on the gravel, but claws it back onto the racetrack, but compromised, runs wide in the middle of Druids. That gives the idea coming. I get another slap into the side as Raffaele comes back to defend his place, but he is vulnerable, and now the undercut. The Mercedes getting slightly loose on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, gets overtaken and up into Surtees, so from 2nd to 4th in the space of 4 corners.
So huge dramas at the start, and there's more of it as Marciello again got run out wide coming through Surtees onto the Grand Prix section of the circuit. So a dramatic first lap, but it's this 3-car tangle that's going to take the time to recover now, isn't it?
And all that was courtesy of the Lamborghini. Mirko Bortolotti was watching all that. He was caught behind the Mercedes, couldn't go anywhere. He had cars to the right of him, and he'd only grass to the left, so he really could just nothing to do but wait for Marciello to get the Mercedes up to race speed. So he's gone from, well, in fact, he started on the grid 3rd and all the way back now to 5th.
So the race order is Fred Verviche leading, Christopher Mies 2nd, Kelvin van der Linde 3rd, having started 5th on the grid. 4th is Raffaele Marciello. In 5th place, Mirko Bortolotti. 6th is Marcus Winkelhock. 7th, Franck Pereira. 8th, Albert Costa. 9th, Felix Morales. And 10th, Pierre Catholic. 11th is Ortelli. 12th is Hasser. He dropped back. 13th is Jack Manchester. 14th is Alex Moraes. 15th, Carlo Van Dam. And 16th, and therefore running in last place, is Will Stevens.
I mean, what a contrast. I mean, Will did a blinding job in his stint in the first round of the Sprint Championship here at Brands Hatch this morning. Fended off enormous pressure from WRT teammates and Audis. Now, starting back, I think he was starting on the 6th row of the grid in 12th, but has been shuffled all the way back. So that is very, very disappointing indeed for the number 2 Audi, coming from a consummate victory earlier today.
So let's have a look at the start then. Marciello sort of caught napping, wasn't he? So he lost out on the inside, but then tried to brave it out and look, goes wide through the gravel. Let's try and piece together where the number 19 Lamborghini got its contact from. I think it was Carlo Van Dam. Behind all of this, braking late. And there, look, into the gravel goes the Mercedes, and yes, the Ferrari's out wide.
The 90 Mercedes tags they back.
And I'm pretty sure that was Jack Manchester getting into Callum McLeod. He's hit by Taylor-Smith, and Taylor-Smith is hit in turn by Kornev, who's got nowhere to go.
Oh, you can see it really big as the Ferrari arrived. Yeah. So that sideswiped the 19 Lamborghini, and that then set off, in effect, indirectly set off this chain of events where people are trying to take advantage. As soon as an incident occurs, this natural instinct of a racing driver to think, how can I take advantage, where can I find a gap? Sometimes you go for a space where there's no gap, knowing by the time you get there, there will be a gap. In this instance, it didn't quite work out for everyone.
I think Will Stevens had to slow to avoid, and he was done on the inside, wasn't he, coming through Druids? So he lost out as a result of that skirmish. let's have a look at how Will Stevens' first few corners looked on board.
They're back on the 7th row, so pretty far back, and already the Ferrari has got up alongside it, got ahead of Will Stevens, so being maybe a little bit overly cautious as they go down through. What's the Ferrari? So you can barely see it, and the dust already has been contact with the 19 Lamborghini. Now it gets a second hip and shoulder in the middle, and then the BMW squeezes through as well. That's, look, absolute motorway carnage.
I mean, the one I feel sorry for is Aaron Taylor-Smith, who's got nowhere to go, jinxed to avoid a car that spins into his path, and then, as he's had one accident, he gets hit in the back by a car that's also swerved to avoid, and he's on the grass. So Dries Van Toor looks on, but poor old Stuart Parker has got a big repair job on those Bentleys, one of which, of course, is a regular in British GT in Loggie's car, so that's got to be made good for, where is it, Silverstone in a few weeks? Snetterton, end of May, yes. Right, there is Christopher Hassett going through. Jack Manchester behind. The start incident is under investigation, incidentally.
Is the start incident Frederick Vervies's start, or is that something in addition, basically through Paddock up the hill into Druids and then on the exit of Druids?
I would say all of the above.
Separate incidents?
Yeah. Certainly the Andrea Caldarelli, Carlo Van Dam moment, and possibly what came after that, but I think coming out of Druids, unless you could argue that McLeod got turned around by somebody, that was one of those things, whereas perhaps up at Druids there was a little bit more of a cavalier line that caused Caldarelli's demise. So we've lost both Bentleys, one Mercedes and one Lamborghini. Callum McLeod's car has been taken to a place of safety at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen yet about the Mercedes, that's still on the grass.
Currently it is up against the tyre barrier, the binding tape that covers the tyres, and there is nobody currently attending to that car now. It may be that they will come back with the recovery vehicle is making its way back. It's deposited the two Bentleys behind that barrier almost at the bottom of the hill where you go to Graham Hill Bend. So I'm assuming it's going to make its way back and try and reclaim the Mercedes that's sitting in a position that, well, in itself doesn't look vulnerable. You just cannot say any car that's on track side of a barrier is in an unvulnerable position.
Well, no, but the recovery vehicle in question had just parked itself, so I fear that Acker ASP, having rebuilt the car once, is going to have to hold its breath and hope it doesn't get struck by anybody else going off the road. So I think it's going to stay there, unless there's another flatbed on the way, but I can't see one. Now let's have a look at the start and Frederick Vervies's start. Was it Marciello asleep? Was it Vervies jumping the start, or somewhere in between? Have a look.
Well, the light is red, so watch when the light goes green. Vervies, well, that's pretty close to anticipating it. But what he was allowed to do, and what has been the policy in 2018, is to avoid this very tight compacting of cars going into the first turn on any given circuit. Is the lead front row are allowed to move beyond the 80 km/h recommended speed limit or the enforced speed limit. But I think Fred Vervies either anticipated it perfectly or got a real flyer. Raffaele Marciello either seemed to be asleep at the wheel, which I do not believe, because he's a pretty smart, sharp guy. But certainly he got dropped and was devoured by the two Audis following.
There's the aftermath of the accident. The cars then go down towards Hawthorne. So I think the Mercedes is going to have to stay where it is. I'm waiting to see whether the lights go out yet on top of the safety car, whether we can get things back underway this time. So down they come through Westfield, this fast right-hander. The green flag is not yet being made ready. There's no suggestion yet that the safety car will be in this time, but the recovery work seems to have come to a halt. So
no, they're up. I think what they're doing is they're working to recover the Lamborghini up at Druids. It is buried in the gravel, and that will require probably a different kind of recovery vehicle to drag it. So it's not where the Mercedes is parked on the way down from Druids that's the problem. It's the 19 Lamborghini, which is still embedded in the gravel, and that car will most certainly have to be recovered and removed to safety before we go back to a green race. But we're just 12 minutes nearly into the race already, and we've had, what, one flying lap? But he makes the way down into the final corner, clearways, safety car leads the group, and everybody having to do it there. Well, it is finally, it's been put onto the back of the flatbed. It is now going to be returned. It will maybe go into Parc Fermé before the car can be returned to the Grasser Racing team. So actually, what we were saying from our commentary position looking through the trees up at Druids was the Lamborghini on the back of the flatbed, but we couldn't quite see the flatbed. The trees were masking. So here it comes, and will it turn quickly on? There's a little access route. It is an access route at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend. So the Lamborghini now safely off track. And what will happen with the Mercedes? Is it going to stay there, or we don't know?
It's going to stay there because the safety car's in this lap. So the Bentleys have been moved, but Mercedes is felt to be okay. The incident involving the two Bentleys and number 19 of Andrea Caldarelli and also number 90, Jack Manchester, it's all going to be investigated after the race. So the story might well rumble on. And also Santalok, I told you Christopher Huster had dropped back into 12th place. Santalok feeling that car was elbowed out by Mirko Bortolotti on the first lap. So there's quite a bit of disquiet after the first lap of the race, I'm afraid.
Yes, of the cars involved, the 4 cars involved, 3 of them are out of the race. Only the 90 Mercedes remains. So if there are any issues for the 1931-32 cars, it's irrelevant to what's going to happen today, but the 90 Mercedes might be the beneficiary or the victim, whichever, of some kind of penalty. Because everybody was moving around, everybody was so close, it was probably an incident rather than something that was done with meditation.
Indeed so, and we are going to go racing. So that's going to be looked at post-race. Let's now concentrate on the remaining 47 minutes that we have as the safety car peels towards the pit lane. It is Frederik Vervies leading Christopher Mies, and Raffaele Marciello, who's on his toes this time, trying to get back past Calvin van der Linde, disappointed with that punctured tyre late race in race 1. The green flag is ready on the timing line. The race is back underway, and Vervies it is that storms clear coming over the line. Mies is 6/10 back as they dive into paddock. 3rd is van der Linde, 4th is Marciello, 5th is Bortolotti, Winkelhock runs 6th, 7th is Pereira, 8th is Costa, 9th is Perales, 10th is Pierre Catholic, and they climb up towards Druids, with there the challenge being made by the Attempto car. Pierre Catholic trying to get up the inside of Felix Perales. They round Druids, and Vervies leads the way.
So again, another perfect start from Frederik Vervies, as Raffaele Marciello, still almost being spooked by what happened on the opening lap, runs wide coming through the Graham Hill Bend, and putting a lot of additional wear and tear on the Mercedes. In a way, he needs to calm down, but it's very easy to say, very difficult to enact. You've got Mirko Bortolotti behind him, who will want to try and use that slightly unsettled compatriot. Both Mirko Bortolotti and Raffaele Marciello are Italians, but Bortolotti's coming under pressure as well, so he can't relax. He's got Marcus Winkelhock directly behind him, and Marcus Winkelhock ain't any slouch when it comes to racing.
Absolutely not. So he leads in Pro-Am at the moment. The only other Pro-Am survivor is Carlo Van Dam in the Ferrari, which is there, just going out of shot. Way back. So we work lap 7. We've only got 10 minutes before the pit window opens here, and the cars accelerate now out of Stirling's, down through Clearways into Clark Curve, end of the lap coming up. Vervies doing absolute best in sectors. Will Stevens has done the fastest lap of the race thus far, playing catch-up again. But of course, he's now got this really long slog of trying to get himself up through the traffic. WRT is going to have to be really savvy on the pit stops here as the leaders go by. And Vervies there, purple, fastest lap of the race. He leads by 0.8 of a second.
Up the hill, and pretty much status quo. The first 4, or the first 5, kind of settling down. We're on board with Raffaele Marciello. And let's hope that he is settled down, not running too wide on the exit. Graham Hill Bend, that looks better. He was also a little bit aggressive, maybe trying to muscle the car. Got good front end bite. The Mercedes, Michael Meadows said they had a little bit of understeer there in his stint in the opening race. We saw that the 90 Mercedes driven by Nico Bastian was better in that part of the racetrack. Looks like the 88 car managed to get on top of that problem.
Down through Hawthorne goes Marciello, then inching up onto the back of Kelvin van der Linde. Short run across Derek Minter straight into Westfield, the leader trying to get away, but actually Mies is quicker in the first sector on this lap. So Christopher Mies, number 1, the car that he shares with Alex Rivera, he runs in second spot, trying to get away from Kelvin van der Linde. Marciello not quite close enough yet to make the move. So is he going to be on the pit stops where we see the shuffling of the order?
Whoa, again riding the curve, and the back end snaps from you. It's a very irregular curve. It's one that you've got to be gentle and careful of, not aggressive. It can bite or catch you out and bite you both. But it's comfortably, Fred Vervies comes across the line. It was just under a second the last time past, and it's roughly exactly the same. Now there, Mr. Relaxé himself, Michael Meadows. Where's the sun lamp, Michael?
He could do nothing for a few minutes until the pit window opens, so he might as well chill. Vervies leads Mies. The gap is only 0.8 of a second. and it's a WRT 1-2, a Tempto Audi third, fourth for ACA ASP is Marciello, fifth for Grasser, Bortolotti, sixth for Santalok is Winkelhock as the leaders go along Cooper Straight, and look, as the race wears on, they're getting wider and wider and wider.
Track temperatures up, ambience up, pushing very, very hard. Everybody on the front three rows has put maximum attack into their effort, and you know that you've got a set of tyres. You've got to consider you're going to run 35 minutes, or maybe in some cases only 25 minutes. But if you abuse those tyres early in your stint, then you will have to live with that all the way through until you make your pit stop or take the checkered flag.
So Mitch then, fastest lap of the race, trying to creep back into the mix against Frederic Verviche, but as we saw in race one, it's all very well doing this catching malarkey, but the overtaking round here is very hard indeed. There's Bortolotti coming under attack from Winkelhock, they're fifth and sixth.
Yeah, and Bortolotti has either dropped back from the rear of the Mercedes, or the Mercedes is catching up to the tail of the 66 car Kelvin van der Linde. So don't know which of the two it is. Just looking at the lap times, last lap for Bortolotti was a 1:26. Well, a tenth of a second between them, but there's actually more than a tenth of a second spread as they go through to complete what will be their 9th lap. This is the 9th lap going into lap 10.
Marciello being warned about respecting track limits at turn 3. Now, if you're getting very carried away and using more and more of the road, then it might well be that's why the gap is increasing, because he's not having to slow as much. He's using more of that runoff, so he's being looked at by the officials. You're on board now with Albert Costa, 8th. That's Franck Pereira. Fearless Franck up the road ahead as he comes down towards the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend, and this is turn 3 where people are running wide, and you see it there. 2 wheels, almost 4, up onto that rumble strip on the outside, short straight down towards Surtees. Now look up the road, because Winkelhock is right on the tail of Bortolotti as they round Surtees. Look, you can just see them going over the brow. The Audi is on the tail of the Lamborghini.
Yeah, and I think it's more a case that the Lamborghini's dropping back rather than the Mercedes pulling away. Marcus Winkelhock closes. If he can maintain the gap between the two cars coming out of Hawthorns, he might think about it. As I was saying, he was thinking about it, but he didn't have sufficient additional speed to make that manoeuvre to get alongside. You must be fairly and squarely alongside the car. It is a one-car corner. You will not squeeze two side by side through Westfield.
Nose to tail into Sterling's then. We've got, 6 minutes before the pit window opens. 20 starters, 4 retirements with damage and accidents on the opening lap of the race. And Marcus Winkelhock, who knows the car's going to drop back, is determined before the pit stop to find a way past the Lamborghini here.
I mean, he's doing everything possible, and you can see the battle for third place now. Marciello is closing up onto the tail of Kevin van der Linde, as is Winkelhock doing on the 5th place Lamborghini and Mirko Bortolotti. The Lamborghini, although it had a great qualifying performance and Bortolotti dragged everything out of it, they are carrying an additional weight, which obviously has a bearing on the overall performance of the car. So Bortolotti really now more in a defensive FC from the Lamborghini, and again we go back to the degree of concentration in the mirrors, eyes going left, eyes going right, watching to see coming up into Surtees, keeping an eye where the Audi is. Good front end bite from the Audi from Marcus Winkelhock. He can hold that tighter line and get closer to the rear of the Lamborghini. This is going to be an opportunity. The Lamborghini will maybe have to go slightly defensive as they come into Hawthorns, and well, Bortolotti had the confidence to know he could break that a little bit later than the Audi could do, so he could just sweep across the front and maintain 5th place.
The race leader now being warned about track limits at Paddock Hill Bend, the first corner, and Verviche leading by 7/10, but it's Mies who has still got the fastest lap of the race. He's quicker last time, trying to chip away. Goes to the second stint, Alex Rivera versus Stewart Leonard. It's going to be quite interesting to see who is going to be the pacier driver out of those two as they go out of Clark Curve. Their 3rd is van der Linde, 4th is Marciello in the best non-Audi in the classification at the moment. Through Clark Curve comes Marciello, then he's 3.5 seconds away from the leaders though.
Yeah, but it's Christopher Mies who clearly has got the pace, and we saw with Frederic Verviche when he was doing his stint in the race earlier today. Very quick in the initial laps, but then last grip. Now whether that's because the way the car is set up, it goes from understeer to neutral to oversteer. I'm not quite sure which phase the lead car, the 17 Audi, is currently in, but for sure Christopher Mies is capable of lapping that little bit quicker than the lead car.
Into Surtees then, there are the 2 race leading Audi. They're getting away, van der Linde being able to fend off Marciello, and in so doing, by defending, is falling away from these 2. So the race leaders blast down towards Hawthorn. We're on lap number 12. And there is Stewart Leonard getting ready. He can watch no more. It's nearly time to think about getting his helmet on and get in the car.
Now we saw the number 2 car, Dries van Voor, come in at the earliest opportunity in the opening round this morning. Surprised us. I don't imagine Fred Verviche is going to be mirroring what we saw the number 2 car doing when we get to the pit stop window, which will open in 2.5 minutes from now.
The real frustration is Will Stevens, who is lapping quicker than those ahead, but he just can't get through the traffic. Jack Manchester has dropped back. Will Stevens, though, now is 17.5 seconds away from the lead, and were he to have clear real estate ahead of him, might make some progress, but it's just so hard to overtake on this narrow road. Up now through Clark Curve come the race leaders then, and the gap to the eye seems to have widened. It was just under 0.6 of a second last time, and on that lap it's again hovering around the same margin. Third is Van der Linde, half a second up on Marchiello, and we are 3 minutes away from the pit window opening. Bortolozzi still 5th, keeping at Bay Winkelhock, and Meeks closing under braking at Druids now.
Yes, you're going to get the seesaw effect now that the lead car Verviche comes out of Druid. First he accelerates to the gap. It's the seesaw off the throttle, on the throttle, brake, off the brake. So the gap is hovering around just over a half a second, but one would anticipate Christopher Mies in the number 1 Audi were ahead. He would have additional pace and would not be under the pressure current race leader Fred Verviche is from the number 1 Audi of Christopher Mies.
The Hawthorns they come, lap 13. And Jack Manchester has been off into the gravel, that's why he dropped back. He has rejoined, and we also are having now Albert Costa warned about track limits again down at Graham Hill Bend, where you've seen the cars go wider and wider and wider. Here are the race leaders then, 2 minutes away from the pit window opening. Cam Verviche fend off Christopher Mies, their teammates remember at WRT, but they are both here to score as many points as they can. So there's no team orders, it's every man for himself as they dart out of Stirlings, under the bridge, down to Clearways.
Yeah, just watching the varying driving styles of Verviche and Christopher Mies, and the difference from me is that Christopher Mies seems to be able to deal with a car that's got a little bit more front end bite, but doesn't have an oversteer, where the lead car is probably not quite so firmly planted when he turns the wheel, and therefore isn't able maybe to have the out-and-out pace, out-and-out lap speed that the pursuing Audi, I believe, has got within it. Still the 3rd place car for Kelvin van der Linde. And the Mercedes, not much difference between the pace of the two, and it's the usual story, you can catch, but you find it difficult to overtake.
So do you do the overtaking on the pit stops, and therefore are the different brains trusts up and down the pit lane ready? They'll be looking at the data, they'll be working out the time of the pit stop, where the car will be released, where that is going to get it to, assuming others don't pit around it on that lap. They've got to try and second guess everything here and work out their own pit window, as it were, for when is the optimum time to bring in their car. There is Christopher Mies then, massively successful Audi racer, chasing after Frederic Verviche, who in a short space of time in Blancpain GT has proved his worth. The Belgian driver leading the pack, and the gap had gone up fractionally to 0.6 of a second on the start of this lap. Their 3rd is Van der Linde, the South African, 4th Italian Raffaele Marchiello, still, of course, the best of the non-Audi brigade in the Mercedes. 4th place into Stirlings then.
And always exciting to watch, because he is Italian and there's that element of Italianness in his driving style. Maxes out every possible ounce of performance from the Mercedes, and really has been the standout Mercedes driver, one would say. But if you go back to Monza, there were some standout drives in Mercedes there as well.
Absolutely, and who knows what the next 35 minutes have in store. We could get some more star drives out of this, couldn't we yet, as Marchiello comes through Palio, and again using all of the road. You're watching pro drivers in GT cars here, and they are pretty much inch perfect, using as much real estate as they can.
And Marchiello has got that confidence. He knows he can run the car on the exit of paddock over the curb, and he's not backing off. He has got that self-belief, which is what's so essential for a driver to be successful, to be fast as well.
First pit stop taking place. Lucas Moraes is forward in the BMW to give way to the Northern Irish driver Andrew Watson. So that is a long way adrift now, but of course we'll get the time back as others cycle through their pit stops. Pit window is open, as you see, so we'll see at the end of this next lap, because it's the first time it's been open for the leading cars, whether they're going to be able to take full advantage of it. In Pro-Am, Marcus Winkelhock leads from Carlo Van Dam, and it's only the 2 survivors. There is the class-leading Audi, currently running in 6th overall.
American Bortolotti seems to find a little bit of breathing space, not a lot, from the pursuing Marcus Winkelhock. So again, there's a limit to what you can do. We go back to the battle for the lead. Fred Verviche comes through Clearways, and in the pits goes 2nd place. Christopher Mies, early pit stop. Now that's an unusual, in my view, but WRT have got a number of cars, so they can just mix and match and decide. 66 in as well.
So Van der Linde in for Stone Schrothorst, Christopher Mies in for Alex Riveras. There is the Attempto Audi down the pit road. And number 1, Alex Rivera, is ready to take over as well. So pit stop cycle through then now, and the co-drivers do their required work as the tyres are changed on number 1, the Attempto squad, which has certainly become far more successful since it started running Audis. They've tried different brands. McLaren has won in the past.
Delay getting the number 1 rolling.
Yeah.
And also 66 rolling as well, so more or less, you might say, even Stevens. Unfortunately, the fact the gap has extended, WRT did a very good job. In spite of taking a couple of additional seconds to get the engine fired up and get it running, there is the lead car making its way. That's the 17 car, Fred Verviche. So we've got considerable clear as Mirko Bortolotti, no, it's not Mercedes, Marcello, now in second place, 4.5 seconds behind the lead Audi.
But with the Audis that were ahead having peeled into the pits, now Marcello can do some qualifying laps, can't he? And try and bring down that gap. He's got to push, push, push.
Well, he would do under normal circumstances. I think he pushed so hard on the opening lap to compensate for what occurred at the start that he may have pushed maybe too hard and used up the best of the tyre performance that's available to him. But we will see. It will reflect on his lap times. Immediately he's been released from running behind the second and third place cars.
And on that lap he's actually slower than Verviche. Interestingly, Albert Costa into the pit lane. Pierre Catholic in the second of the Attempto Audis. Peter Horst will take that over. Pierre Catholic will get out, so the car becomes decaffeinated. And also coming in is Will Stevens to give way to Dries Vanthoor in the race 1 winning car.
Here he comes on that pit lane limiter. It sounds like the proverbial bag of nails.
Yes.
And then when they release it, it's like an explosion of sound. It just, the V10 erupts into a cacophony of wonderful, normal, aspirated exhaust note. Hope we never lose that.
I totally agree. Long may it continue. Will Stevens gives way to Dries Vanthoor, who straps him in and runs around the car. The car is dropped down, the old tyre's taken away. That's ready to go. Fred Verviche then, quicker than Stewart Leonard, will stay out for a little bit longer. In this race, you notice Dries Vanthoor being given a bit more driving time than Will Stevens. It was the other way around in race 1. Here we go down towards Clearways. Is this the lap on which Verviche comes in? Look at his line. Looks like he's going to stay out. WRT have only just got rid of one car, so at least one more lap before he's ready to come in for the mandatory stop. Over the timing line he will go. There's Marcello, who was fractionally quicker in sector 1. He was quicker in sector 2. At the end of the lap he is going to be slightly quicker in sector 3, and he's 3/10 nearly faster over the lap.
Yeah, 3/10, and that's his best lap of the race to date. Now that he has finally got that clear air, now there's no disruption to the aerodynamics around the front of the Mercedes, and he can get on and do the job which everyone knows he's capable of. But you know, I'd whatever, love to speak to him after the race to see what was it that happened. Why did you not anticipate? Why did you not go with Fred Verviche? But that's a question for later.
Now we had at Monza, didn't we? Teams slow. It was the Emil Frey team slow on restarts because they were having trouble with the radio transmission. Was that, I wonder, down to Raffaele watching for the lights, or was he waiting for the team to shout go? You would expect it to be the driver's decision, wouldn't you, really?
There's a bit of both. I mean, the driver should be aware of what's going on, but the team likewise should be keeping the driver informed at all times. But if there is a radio issue and you're getting breakup in transmission, you've got enough to focus upon without sort of dialing, trying to tune into Radio Luxembourg or Capital Radio, whatever it is. So
we have had reports this weekend of WRT's radios not working. I know we're talking Mercedes in this context. Alex Rivera has just done the absolute best in the first sector, so he's absolutely flying. As Stewart Leonard gets ready, the leading car is in this time. So Verviche at the end of lap 18 dives for the pits. Marcello staying out. He will get the race lead, but of course he's running on older tyres, and this car will go onto fresh tyres.
Indeed it is, and Fred Verviche was absolutely hard on the brakes as he came up to the pit line that leads into the pit stop. You've got to go down to 50 kilometers per hour, and he just about got that car as he crossed the white line down to that mandatory 50 kilometers per hour.
Right, Alex Rivera hasn't raced at Brands Hatch up until this weekend. He got second in the earlier race. Is that car going to be able to jump into the lead relative to number 17 then? Stewart Leonard gets on board the WRT engineers in the very hot conditions, doing the hard work of changing tyres. Here comes Alex Rivera, and away goes Stewart Leonard then, so the car leaves in the lead. It's going to go back into the race now. Number 1 Audi's almost with him. They're going to be absolutely together as they dive into paddock. And remember that Rivera is a lap into the stint. He knows what the car's like. He knows what the track is like. Stewart Leonard does not. Rivera tries to muscle up the inside line, and Stewart Leonard, a good defence, just hangs on to the lead.
Yeah, he was cautious coming out of the pit lane into Paddock Hill Bend, and he knew he had the number 1 Audi right on his rear wing. This is the best opportunity for the number 1 Audi to try and squeeze past the current race leader going into Surtees. Goes with the wide entry. They're going to make the undercut, trying to get quicker speed off the exit of Surtees. It's going to be close. This is going to be an attempt coming down into Pilgrim's Drop up onto Hawthorns. Stewart Leonard is going to run in the middle of the racetrack to try and prevent anything from Rivera's, and he's succeeded in doing it. And if he can do that for this opening lap, he then has got a reasonable chance of consolidating his race lead.
Now Raffaele Marciello has yet to stop. There is Mirko Bortolotti giving way to Christian Engelhardt. Marciello's last lap was a 25.3, the best lap of the race. Christopher Mies 25.0 from earlier on. So Marciello trying to get clear track space, trying to push and build up the advantage. So Engelhardt is good to go in number 63. And where are the 2 leading Audis? Here they come then. So Stewart Leonard fending off just number 1 in the hands now of Alex Rivera. So we've got 27.5 minutes to go. Here they come up towards the timing line, and it looks as though now Stewart Leonard has been able to fend off Alex Riveras, and the job is done. He's about 2 lengths up. So Riveras, he had that good chance crawling all over the back of him at this section a lap ago, but Stewart Leonard, job well done, fends him off.
Yeah, it's always a difficult moment when you've had a pit stop, driver change, new wheels, tires, go on the car, off the jacks, go, go, go! And you rush up the pit lane, and you sort of Paddock Hill Bend just falls away from you like the Eiger Mountain, and you've got a car behind you who wants to get past at the earliest opportunity. There's enormous tension here right now in the commentary, but it is, the pressure and tension is huge. And Stewart Leonard, I beg your pardon, as the 88 makes its pit stop. Stewart Leonard has done a go, hit the barrier on the way in.
Whoa, Marciello.
Well, Raffaele.
Dear. That's going to be looked at.
No pasta for you before you go to bed tonight then, will there?
No, I'm afraid that's going to be looked at by the officials. Drama's coming into the pit lane. Anyway, Marciello gets out, Michael Meadows gets in. You can't say there wasn't commitment and energy, but here it is, John, talk us through it.
He's just too quick, he couldn't slow it down. The pit lane is not the racetrack, well it technically is, but he glanced off it, but it depends how much steering lock he might have had on. That little impact could be enough to reset the steering, maybe slightly off-centre, which is always a hate thing for a driver to have. If the steering wheel is not straight ahead of you, let's have a look and see the right front. We couldn't really get a glimpse of it.
The car is about to leave the pit lane. It will not stay ahead of the 2 leading Audis, and it will be 4th as it was before the stop. So Michael Meadows there is behind stage Horst as they go up the hill, and it's Stewart Leonard in the lead. So actually on the pit stop, the top 4 has remained the same, but now, yes, you're absolutely right, Michael Meadows is given a car which may have some steering and suspension damage.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a big hit, but you don't need, if you've got a little bit of angle on your block and you slap the barrier, it's maybe enough just to make it, it's a little tweak to the steering, but it means that its front geometry has changed, the feel of the car. But it's the worst thing of all for me, is always having a steering wheel that isn't straight ahead, dead centre, and then you wonder whether there's something maybe broken. I don't know. Wait and see, but hopefully the Mercedes is made of sterner stuff, and that kind of gentle little nudge will just be absorbed within the car, and so it looks hard to tell, and that looks like the steering wheel is pretty much, maybe the bodywork was the recipient of most of the contact with the barrier. Luckily the wheel and suspension might have avoided it.
So Michael Meadows 4th. Now look at the 2 leading Audis. They are absolutely as one. You've got an 8-wheel car in the lead of the race here. They're that close. It is then Stewart Leonard just ahead of Alex Rivera as they come down through Clearways into Clark Curve this time. Almost tied together, these 2, through the right-hander. And now the run up towards the line, and actually through that section, Stewart Leonard gets away, doesn't he? The gap has suddenly opened up again. He knows Brown's a bit better than does Alex Rivera, who's here for the first time. The gap is half a second between them. Steinschroth Horst is 3rd, 1.4 seconds back, and lapping quicker than the 2 ahead of him. So just as we saw in race 1, the Attempto car is doing the chasing. Michael Meadows is 4th, and this is his first flying lap, so we'll see what the car is able to do now. As there, Felix Morales and Nicolas Jamin's Mercedes goes round the outside to try and get ahead of the 82 Loris Hezemann's Lamborghini. You're on board with Peter Horst, who goes up round the outside there. The Dutch driver is forced back in the pack.
Yeah, he tried to take the long way round, but the reality with 3 other cars ahead of you, you're always going to get shuffled back to from where you have just come. So again, 82 Lamborghini now, threat up the inside, dive up the inside. Laura Hazelman's just about able to stay on the brakes. But get on the brakes a little bit later and defend that position. But clearly, it's going to be a hard remaining 23 minutes for Lawrence Hazelman, because he knows he's got a battle on his hands. He's trying to do some good work directly ahead of him, and it's the 55 Audi that's going to be giving him difficulty.
Great little battle pack here. So you've got in 6th place Neil Stevenart, running slightly out of position in a sense, because Marcus Winkelhock got the car up there in the first stint. Neil Stevenart was a long way back in race 1. Loris Hezemans is also, of course, in that mix thanks to Franck Pereira's opening stint. Nicolas Jamin, the French-American driver, courtesy of the early efforts of Felix Sorales, and up there with them as well is Peter Scott. So he's probably actually on natural pace, more likely to be ahead of those three, and he's about to have a go! There's contact at the inside of Hezemans. He goes. I am coming through, says Peter Scott. And look at Jamin, 2 wheels on the grass, also coming out of Clark Curve. You can overtake round here just, but you've got to be brutal about it. Jamin goes through. Peter Scott has gone through as well, so that puts him up into 8th. Jamin into the top 6, but that was all pretty brutal.
Yeah, 2 hard passes, but sometimes when you've got a tight racetrack, you've got to be a little bit unkind to the competitor you're overtaking. Going into clearways, you do need to be in a position where you can take control of the corner. That just about worked. And likewise, coming up into Palio Bend, well, that was the situation. It was a slightly easier pass because there was momentum with the Mercedes, whereas what we saw with Lawrence Hazelman and the idea going into clearways, it was clearly a pass made before they got to the apex.
Up front, though, Stewart Leonard still leads from Alex Riveras. Now, Alex might have to be equally hard in getting through, but what he doesn't want is to eliminate his teammates. So down in the pit garages, drivers watching their cars now. You saw Fred Ravish watching on Stewart Leonard doing this very good job up front. Last time he only led over the line by 0.273 in a second, but look at the way that Stone Schrothorst is going behind. Race winner at Zolder, it is going to be 3 for the lead before much longer, and it's just building up to be almost a carbon copy of what we had in race 1, isn't it, with the leading cars bunching lap after lap.
Now, unfortunately, I missed all the excitement on the penultimate lap here at Palio Bend, when I think it was Van der Linde's car had ended up with a deflating tyre. Hopefully we're not going to have that again in this final moments of the race.
The tyre, I think, was going down anyway because it was on the opposite side from the contact. So I think because the Audi had already lost pace, it was the tyre going down through went Meeks, up the inside went Marciello. That's when there was contact, but that was on the right-hand side of the Audi, and the tyre went down on the left.
Okay.
And so I think it was a slow puncture, which then went pop post-race. But here, with everything inflated, Sten Schrothorst is in 3rd spot. The leader is Stewart Leonard. The British drivers are coming at 2 British winners out of Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cups British visit. Will Stevens won earlier on in the day for WRT. Stewart Leonard leading now from Alex Rivera, the Spanish driver, and then the Dutchman, Stijn Schrothorst, who is almost there. His last lap was quicker than the 2 ahead. In the first sector, he's pretty much doing the same sort of pace as the 2 leading cars.
Yeah, but he's the one that's doing the catching. The pace is being dictated by Stewart Leonard, and not very much that Riberas can do behind. He can catch, but he can't actually find the position on the racetrack where he can make that. You've got to do it maybe coming out of Stirlings into clearways. Nothing there this time. Maybe out of clearways into Paddock. Well, we'll wait and see if there's any. But it is the 3rd place car right now. That's Shorthorse is potentially the quickest of these 3 lead cars.
He's doing the catching. The fastest lap still from early on in the race, Christopher Mies in that car, number 1 Audi. Here, meantime, is Hezemans on the back of Stevenart. So this is 7th and 8th now, the Audi leading Pro-Am. Neil Stevenart just ahead of Loris Hezemans. Then you've got Christian Klein, the Austrian, the ex-Grand Prix racer, ahead of Simon Gachet, who is doing a pretty impressive job this weekend. Gachet's limited in terms of experience, but not disgracing himself at all as there. Hezemans looks to the inside. Gap is open up for him. He's going to go through. Loris Hezemans will go up the inside of Druitt, and Christian Klein tries to follow suit. Klein sweeps up the inside, then goes through, gains a place, and also coming up to have a go with Simon Gachet.
Yeah, that was a little bit of inexperience. So, I mean, Klein overtakes. Christian Klein saw what was happening, made the manoeuvre and made it stick, and that was the important thing, to get up the inside square before you enter into the corner, and it was a relatively straightforward pass. All courtesy of Loris Hezemans, who created that opportunity for Christian Klein.
Sometimes that's what you need, isn't it? Somebody to prise open the door, and then you become the opportunist and take full advantage. So, could now Alex Riveras make a move against Stewart Leonard? Well, Riveras is being warned about track limits, but if he has a go and the door is open, that might just play into the hands of Stijn Schrothorst. But WRT is unlikely to do anything that might help another team out of all of this. 19 minutes are still on the clock. Christopher Meese looks on, Dries Vanthoor looks on as they come through, and Dries Vanthoor looking on because that car is out of the race. So we saw Will Stevens bring it in, but Dries Vanthoor is a retirement, and number 2 Audi going no further.
Well,
now this is a lap ago. Have a look at Riberas running wide, all 4 wheels off.
Yeah, and following in 3rd place as well. So 2 cars, short horse as well, 2nd and 3rd place cars well and truly off the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and that's just again the pressure of racing, using your tyre, maybe abusing it maybe too early in the pursuit of the car, the lead car that you want to get through. So consolidation, push when you can, but don't abuse at any point.
Down through Hawthorns goes number 1, Alex Riberas then. 4 tenths back he is on Stewart Leonard, and Stein Horst's last lap fractionally slower, and we've got drivers being reported to the stewards for not having the correct driver ID displayed when they got to the pit exit. This was something that was investigated in race 1, the officials clamping down on people not flicking the transponders when they should.
500 euros please, 500 euros please, 500 euros please. 6 of them got a 500 euro fine. What the teams did.
Ka-ching. Right, through Clark Curve, the race leaders. It was 1.4 seconds last time covering the top 3. Scott Horst's a bit elasticated in this, isn't he? Some laps he looks closer and he's dropped back again, it seems, this time.
I mean, he might just be having a breather. It is always intense concentration. Maybe he's just feeling the effect of running close to the rear wing of the 2nd place Audi Riberas. And to me, it's always been, if you want to make a successful overtake, don't stick close to the car that you've caught up to. Sometimes it helps to drop back a little bit, pick up your momentum, and hopefully you can use that momentum at one corner where you know you're strong and the competitor you're trying to pass isn't maybe at their best. Mirko Bortolotti, or Christian Engelhardt, I should say, now behind the wheel of the 63 Lamborghini, also running wide on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and it's been a tough weekend for the Grosser Racing. They had to start at the rear of the field because of an infringement, and now struggling in 5th place, trying to find a way past the 88 Mercedes of Michael Meadows, and really there's not much more I think that Christian Klein's going to be able to do with the 88 Mercedes.
So there is the Lamborghini out of Westfield. Michael Meadows up the road ahead. Michael is 5 seconds off the race leader. It does suggest that maybe Orley's not 100% with that car, but what can Engelhardt do? He's inching up onto the back of Michael Meadows. If the Mercedes is hobbled, that might just ease his task a little. Engelhardt looks the quicker, doesn't he?
He does, but overall lap times are hovering around about the same, more or less within a half a tenth of a second or so. The Mercedes is a really good car, but the Lamborghini is more, if you wish to call it, race car-like in the way that it performs. But if you had to choose one of the 2 cars, you know, it's very difficult to say, because the balance of performance clearly has a bearing on the individual car and then on the driver pairings behind the wheel.
Now, what is also happening is that Alex Riberas is becoming more of a problem for the race officials. He's gone from being warned about track limits to now having a driving standards flag for track limits at turn 3. There is the car in question, number 1, but if he carries on exceeding the track limits, then he might find himself in rather hotter water. Incident between Christian Klein and number 25 of Simon Gachet is under investigation, and so also is a Christopher Hauser and Mirko Bortolotti incident from the opening lap of the race.
Yeah, and I think the opening lap of the race, with everybody so tightly bunched together, and we saw what happened at the tail of the field, but in turn 4 that would be Surtees, so we didn't see that incident obviously getting very close to one another, and maybe a little bit of a lean on the one side of a car or the other, but that will be investigated, and there may or may not be any penalties handed down.
Race leaders come out of Clark Curve then. Now, has Stein Horst shot his bolt, as it were, here? Can he stay with the 2 leaders that go over the line? The gap nearly half a second between them, but Riberas now running out of ideas. He's chasing a car that is out of the same stable, so in theory should be exactly the same pace around a circuit where overtaking is far from easy. There's pretty limited options of what he can do.
Yeah, and fundamentally all 3 of the lead Audis are identical. There are minor variations in preference between the 2 driver lineups in each of the 3 cars, but in essence they are identical, and it's just on this occasion it's down to Stewart Leonard leading the race, controlling it, and Rivera's, and then Horst behind. There's not an awful lot left in the tank that they can do.
And likewise, Engelhardt, he's closing on Meadows, but he's not quite got there yet. So even though we thought he was the quicker, there's still a little bit of a gap between them, and with each lap passing, so Engelhardt starts to run out of options. So we started with 20, we've got 15 circulating. I'm intrigued to know why Dries Vanthoor's car retired. It might be flippant to suggest that there was nothing they could do, because they were so far out of the points and overtaking was difficult, but it has ground to a halt in the pit lane and is out of the race. So one of the WRT cars gone, and a bittersweet day for Vanthoor and Stevens, a win and a retirement.
Yes, at least they got the victory, and for Will Stevens in particular, you have a victory at his home circuit, Brands Hatch. And I think it was one of the best drives I've seen Will Stevens produce, because he was under pressure all the way through, from the minute he got behind the wheel until the checkered flag fell. 13 minutes of the race remaining. On board Christian Engelhardt up the hill into Paddock Hill Bend. Again, that intense concentration. You drop down, the compression at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend, then uphill, hard on the brakes, swing it into Druids, a long, long corner. Whereas we go back to that, again, Rivera's runs very, very wide. Don't want to sort of draw attention to it, but he's doing it to himself. In the meantime, Christian Engelhardt has closed the gap to the 4th place Mercedes, and maybe Christian Engelhardt might find the little bit of pace. So the 5th place Lamborghini pushing very hard on the 4th place Mercedes.
We understand it was a rear wheel issue that has stopped number 2 Audi. So they're not telling us very much more than that, but that's the reason offered.
Often that might be a wheel bearing. If that's the case, then there's nothing you can do. You have to retire the car, but it could be something more complex. We wait for the team to give us advice. But here is the battle for 4th place. That is clearly getting a bit more intense as we come up to the closing, just over 10 minutes or so to go.
Alex Rivera in 2nd place. He's on his last warning for track limits. The team has asked that if he does do it again, they do give him a last warning, and he's just had it. So last warning, car 1, Alex Rivera. If he does it again, he's going to be in trouble.
Either he's got a radio problem or he's got a hearing problem. He might have both, but whatever it is, he's now been given almost the last rights.
Yes, quite.
For his exit. Watch what he does coming out of Druids, down the hill. If he runs all 4 wheels wide on the exit of Graham Hill Bend on this time, and let's have a look and see, can he keep the car? Well, that's good. That's good. That's within acceptable permits of driving. So the message has got through, but he will feel, I'm being handicapped. I can't do what I want to do.
Well, that was all right. 2 wheels are still on the tarmac, but he's on, as we say, on his last warning. And WRT hopefully has got the message across. Now here's the fight for 4th. Michael Meadows keeping at bay Christian Engelhardt. And then in 6th place, Nicolas Jamin, the American-French driver, closing up all the time as they head into the right of Hawthorne. You've got in 7th place, Loris Hezemans. 8th is Christian Klein. 9th, Simon Gachet. And 10th now is Nico Bastien, who is leading in the Silver Cup. There is now a driving standards flag also for Andrew Watson for disrespecting track limits. And Watson being disrespectful, never.
Well, I mean, it's frustrating. If you were battling for a position, a major position in a race, but for Andrew Watson down in 13th place, it's frustrating that he's driving the wheels off his car and he's just getting advice that you're sliding too far coming out of turn 3.
So there is the Loris Hezemans, Christian Klein, Simon Gachet, Nico Bastien and Norbert Siedler battle pack. That takes you down to 11th. And Loris Hezemans, actually in this stint, is looking better than he has looked all weekend. Free practice and qualifying, we saw him over the curb and on the grass quite a bit, but actually here, he looks pretty solid.
Yes, he's driven a much better race than he did in practice and qualifying. Maybe Twan, his father, has come here. He's a great race driver from the 70s and the 60s. I hate to go back that far. Maybe just an arm on the shoulder of the #1 son, but look how far he's away from the apex going through Paddock Hill Bend. So maybe what we're seeing is improvement, but there's still room for further improvement for the young Belgian Dutchman. I'm never quite sure what Twan Hezemans is or what Loris Hezemans might be.
I think he goes under a Dutch licence, certainly, and elder brother Mike Hezemans always used to be categorised as Dutch. So as they turn there through Surtees, Hezemans, I mean, given that he's got, 5 of them stacked up behind him, he's looking very impressive in this. He's not putting wheels out of line, and the Lamborghini using its power where it can with 9 minutes on the clock there. The Mercedes leading in the Silver Cup, Nico Bastien. heads the Silver Cup from Andrew Watson and Lucas Moraes. We've only got 2 in the Silver Cup surviving. We've only got 2 in Pro-Am that have survived.
So therefore he doesn't really need to make up that additional position, albeit that Nico Bastien is a race driver and he wants to make as many positions as is possible. But his battle is for the Silver Cup, not for overall position. But yeah, let's give Lois Hazelman's credit for driving well under pressure, and maybe he will have felt, or will feel after this, that he's stepped forward in terms of his ability to deal with that kind of pressure that you get when you are being pushed by more experienced.
So the race is done, 32 laps as far as the leaders are concerned. 8 more minutes remain, and can Stewart Leonard hang on? I've got to say, on the current evidence, yes, because everything that Alex Rivera has thrown at him, he's been able to repel. And as the cars turn then, in this case, through Druids, you're looking at 7th and 8th. Loris Hazelman's keeping Christian Clean behind him. They drop down the hill into the left-hand and out Graham Hill bend. So Clean still pushing here. Michael Meadows under attack still from Christian Engelhardt, 4th and 5th. But again, Engelhardt's tried everything and he just cannot find the width of the road.
No, the 2-car performances being pretty equal, pretty matched. Everything that Engelhardt does, not a problem for Michael Meadows to kind of cover. And again, that just illustrates the stature Michael Meadows has elevated himself to, that he can withstand a lot of pressure. I mean, you're watching on TV and you think, well, what's so hard about this? But actually, you have no idea what it's like to deal with what you're doing, just driving the car and at the same time trying to be defensive, but at the same time trying to move forward, because he wants to get on the podium. He's 4th place, permanently just looking to see how far behind 3rd place. Well, it's 8.5 seconds. So 4th place looks like the final destination for the 88 Mercedes.
So there, Engelhardt turning out of paddock. Michael Meadows looking to try and get the points. Only 7 more minutes to go. Whether or not the car could have gone quicker, but for that little brush against the barrier coming into the pit lane. I'm surprised actually that the stewards haven't wanted a word with Marciello, because going that quickly into the pit lane must have raised a few eyebrows.
Well, as long as he didn't go over the start line, but for the painted line as you come into the pit lane itself, at below or at 50 kilometers per hour, I don't think there's very much they're going to make of it. He didn't damage the car, he didn't cause any incident that would have led to a red flag, yellow flag, or whatever flag.
Now the gap 2nd to 3rd has come right down. Alex Rivera, possibly because he's now having to drive in a more restrained manner, has been caught by Stijn Schothorst. So that gap is down to just over half a second. 6 minutes to go, but we've been here before. Catching is one thing, passing is quite another, and all that.
Stewart Leonard comes out of Stirling's Bend, doesn't need to use all the curb on the outside. He knows, he's seeing in his mirrors, he's probably getting the information from the pits. There's nobody on a pit board, there's no pit boards being illustrated, so the communications are by radio. You can see the gap has opened up. It was 1.1 seconds as they came across the line the last lap, and a further 1/10 of a second. And that will give Stewart Leonard that little bit of additional respite from the pressure with just over 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, that point you make is absolutely right. In the old days, it'd be people with pit boards leaning over the wall. Now, everybody is, of course, in a garage, looking at laptops, looking at the data, looking at the timing screens, and you're looking at Christian Engelhardt, who goes up now through the right-hand Druids and down towards Graham Hill Bend. So 4th and 5th together, Meadows and Engelhardt. Is there going to be a change before the end? Well, Christian Engelhardt throwing everything at this, but he can't get there yet. Takes a tighter line, diving into Surtees, trying to force a mistake out of Michael Meadows. And now we've got another warning about track limits, and it's for the 3rd place car. Stijn Schothorst is now being warned about track limits as they accelerate up through Hawthorns on towards Westfield. The 2 leading cars clear. This is the 4th and 5th fight you're looking at. And the run up to Westfield through the right-hander. Michael Meadows doing a staunch defence of this position. He knows that he can't catch the top 3, but he wants to try and bring the car home best of the rest, if you like, the first non-Audi. And here Raffaele Marciello have had a solid weekend, a podium in race 1, and of course that all changed in the last few minutes, so let's see what might happen here. Because again, look, the gap 2nd and 3rd has widened, so Schothorst gets close, can't pass, has to drop back, and it's happened again. The lead gap was 1.2 seconds, and there, look, is Czech radio. Can you hear for Alex Rivera? So we've had reports all weekend of both numbers 1 and 2 having radio problems, happening qualifying for number 2, but definitely Alex Rivera has got this radio problem, and there is a drive-through penalty for Christian Clean for causing a collision. So Christian Clean, running in 8th place, is being given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. And that, we understand, was from the start of the race. So Christian Clean with what? 4 minutes to go, has just copped a drive-through, and it wouldn't have been him behind the wheel, would it? Because number 14 at the start would have been in the hands of Albert Costa. So Albert's mistake cost a lot, potentially, if that car now tumbles away from 8th place. And there is confirmation that it's a drive-through for number 14. Albert Costa started, Christian Kleen is the man behind the wheel, and he's about to drop down then if he has to serve that penalty. Incident involving Bortolotti and Hassa, this is from the opening lap, investigated after the race. And the leading cars are about to start lap 36, and we've got 3 more minutes on the clock. That is all. Down they come. So Stein Skotthorst, I've got to say, is unlikely to gain second place now, if only because he can't live close enough and there just isn't really the opportunity to find a way past. The cars look great around here, but the frustration for the drivers is that try as they might, and especially with the balance of performance equating everything so nicely, it is really hard to be able to make a move anywhere without risking contact. You've got to have either somebody ahead with a problem or making a mistake for you to go through. And there, again, Engelhardt, look, he's equally trapped behind the Mercedes. Rides the curve at Druids, rattles the curves at Graham Hill Bend, down towards turn 3. Comes with 2 wheels on the rumble strip on the outside onto Cooper Straight. The next warning about track limits is being offered to Pitibir Bakhti, who is still chasing Neil Stevenart. And in Pro-Am, we might yet get a change, you know, because there's only 6 tenths between them. There's Kleen serving his drive-through. Here they come, over the timing line. And there, look, is Pitibir Bakhti in the Ferrari on the back of Neil Stevenart. And this is for Pro-Am. The lead is kind of being affected there because of that car rejoining. So that's just given Neil Stevenart a bit more breathing space in Pro-Am. But as I say, that could well change before the end. What about the overall race leaders? They are coming up to the timing line. Can they squeeze 2 more laps out of this? A flying lap is at 1:25. And so, yeah, they're going to have time for 2 more. The one they're on and 1 more. Into Paddock Hill Bend goes Stewart Leonard. 2 more laps to run as he comes through the right-hander, drops downhill, makes the climb up to Druids, and as they're at the top of the hill, only going into paddock now is Michael Meadows, who's dropping away. I still think, in fairness to Michael, all is not 100% with that car after its biff into the barrier. Michael's a quick driver, and I'm sure, under normal circumstances, will be nearer to the Audis. So there they dive in towards Surtees, onto the Grand Prix loop. Down Hawthorne goes this overall lead situation. Stewart Leonard then doing his best and succeeding, in fairness, in a sort of Will Stevens soak up the pressure away from race 1. Now this is about to be the change of lead in Pro-Am potentially. Neil Stevenart's Audi just ahead of Pitibir Bakhti. They've got tucked up behind them Peter Skotthorst, who has fallen right to the very back. And this is the problem for Pitibir Bakhti, because he's having to defend from Skotthorst rather than attack the Audi ahead. Through goes Skotthorst. And as they go through paddock, that now, unless this Audi can get ahead of the car up the road ahead, is going to really affect the Pro-Am battle, because Pitibir Bakhti can't have a go at Neil Stevenart because he's got this other Audi in the way. So all of a sudden the Santalot car has been helped by the Attempto car. Different teams, rival squads, but one has just inadvertently helped the other for a class victory potentially here. And the Kessel Racing Ferrari falling back second in the class. It's got the pace to be ahead, but it now comes into the situation of how on earth do you get past the traffic. The leaders are on the last lap though, and starting the last lap there at Druid, 6 tenths of a second, the margin between Leonard and Rivera. Stewart Leonard doing a good job, but the margin 6 tenths of a second. Is he going to be able to hang on? Well, seemingly yes, because he got this far despite all the pressure behind it. It was really that lap out of the pits that did it for Stewart Leonard. He held his nerve, he didn't put a wheel wrong, stood his ground, and that was really the only chance Rivera has had to find a way past him. It didn't come to anything, and so Stewart Leonard with Frederic Verviche from pole are on target for a race win, and will be our 4th different winning crew in 4 races in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup this year, if things stay as they are at the moment. Down through Westfield they come now. Through the right-hander, up now from Sheen Curve, and then on towards Stirlings. It's been a very good day for Audi. It's been a very good day for WRT. Grasser and Attempto won at Zolder. WRT locking out both wins here. And there in the pit garage, they look at the data, they look at the screens, and in a moment we'll see a checkered flag wave at another 1-2 finish for the WRT Audis across the line to win on home soil. Stewart Leonard wins with Frederic Verviche, second Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies, and third the Attempto Audi of Scott Horst and Kelvin van der Linde. And look at this for fourth, nose to tail up to the line, but Michael Meadows just hangs on ahead of Christian Engelhardt. Sixth goes the way of Nicolas Gemin and Felix Serralles. The top six covered by 14.7 seconds. Now what about Pro-Am, because still the pesky Peter Scott-Horst Audi is in the way. If he gets up past Stevenart, the door is open for Petit Biron-Bachty to get through as well, but for the moment it ain't happening. Neil Stevenart here is doing a very good job and looking as though Pro-Am might be for him. The Silver Cup just won by Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester. Biron-Bachty, try as he might, it's all been affected by Peter Scott-Horst, but now Scott-Horst comes up to attack Neil Stevenart on the run down towards Clearways. He goes to the outside. Can he get the undercut and get the tighter inside line coming out of Clark Curve? They come up to the line, but it's all academic for the Ferrari because that has dropped back. And so a Pro-Am win under pressure. Neil Stevenart and Marcus Winkelhock, second Carlo Van Dam and Petit Biron-Bachty in the Ferrari. So a race all about Audi, a 1-2-3 for the Audis, and what a job and what a great drive done by Stewart Leonard, coming home withstanding all of that pressure and coming through to be the victor. There into Parc Fermé comes the number 17 Audi. Vincent Voss and his team will be absolutely over the moon about this with another 1-2 finish. There is the car of Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies in the background. And we wait for Stewart Leonard to hop out of the car. Frederic Verviche will be absolutely delighted, of course, with that. He took his first Blancpain sprint pole yesterday, and now a race win. Having not done the Zolder races, that was Robin Frins who was sharing the car there. But here, a great job. So the Pirelli winners' caps handed to the drivers. Out steps Stewart Leonard, and a race victory for the British driver here at Brands Hatch, and he understandably is over the moon. Goes to the team to congratulate them and thank them for all the hard work. But two British winners in the two races here, a fantastic effort. Will Stevens soaking up the pressure in race one, and Stewart Leonard doing likewise in the second race. So you've got Stewart ready to take off his crash helmet. There is Frederic Verviche, the pole man. And John Watson is there ready as well to have a word once Stewart's ready. Second to Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies for WRT. So Frederic Verviche and Stewart Leonard are the winners, and they are with John Watson.
Fred, congratulations, but an absolutely blinding start. Did you anticipate the lights or not?
I just took a good start, I guess, and I think that was the key. But then I want to say a special thanks to Stewart. He did an amazing job. It was an incredible drive, so thanks to him.
Well, you both did a great job indeed. You brought the car in, handed it over to first to Stewart. Stewart, we spoke a little bit earlier in the day. Turn around, and you were telling me that you thought maybe you would make a few little tweaks to your car. Did you make them, and did they help you?
Yeah, no, for sure they did. Race 2 felt a lot better, a lot more comfortable. It was pretty tight on the pit exit. That was quite fun with Alex. But it was good. It was an awesome race. And it was a very long 17 minutes.
You knew that Alex was going to try and jump you when you left the pit lane. I mean, was it realistic for him, or were you always going to cover it?
I mean, it was realistic in the end. If I made a small error, I think he could have probably got past. But I just blocked straight out the pits. And then by T3, everything was up to temp, and that was good to drive away.
Well done, great drive, well done, guys.
So an excellent job done by Stewart Leonard and by Frederic Verviche as they pose for the photographs. WRT having a great day here at Brands Hatch. Vincent Voss's team has always been one of the, if not the, ultimate benchmark team in Blancpain GT racing. And you can see why. It's so well drilled, the cars are always reliable, except a bit of a mystery over the Dries Van Tor car. Whether it was given some damage on that first lap, we know not, but we'll try and get to the bottom. Let's hear from second.
Christopher Mies, another podium, another great day here at Brands Hatch.
It's great because it's sunny. So
come on, you guys, give us a break.
Well, I'm happy for the team. You know, another 1-2 is really good, really good for the team. Of course, we would like to win that race. Yeah, it didn't. Not everything went according to our plan, but in the end,
Okay, what was your plan?
To win the race.
How?
You know, the boys did a really good pit stop, but yeah, the driver change from our side wasn't as perfect as it should be, so we need to work on that from our side as the drivers. But in the end, you know, second place, good points for the championship. It's good, but it's still room to improve.
Alex, you did a great job, but you're continually getting radio messages to avoid abusing track limits in turn 3. Were you not hearing those?
Yeah, I had no radio. Yeah, that's when it happens, right? Right at the most critical moment of the race, like when I was, you know, I saw the warning, the flag, and then after that I understood about the track limit, so I took it easier, and I kind of gave up on P1 after that, because, you know, if we push too much, if I took too much risk and had to drive through, then we lost a really good position for us in the championship. So I think we have to be clever and take the points. P2 and in race 1 and race 2 is really good for us. So I mean, we lost the victory in the pit stop, so in the driver change, so we have to work on that.
Good man, well done.
Thank you.
So that confirms what we were suggesting during the course of the race, that there was a radio issue for the number one, forgive me, Audi. Alex Rivera's new to Brands Hatch, but had a pretty decent day in terms of results. So the drivers are going to make their way up to the podium, and before they do, we need to hear from the third placed drivers as well. A much better result, and the real surprises of the season here at Stijn Horst and Kelvin van der Linde.
Short, you've always got a smile on your face. Third place, that good enough for another smile?
It's good enough for a smile, exactly, especially after the race earlier today, where I feel like we got robbed of a podium. Very unfortunate with the puncture, so this is a good comeback and good for the championship, and we both had a lot of fun, so what else can we ask for?
A lot more. Kelvin, you've had a great day. I mean, disappointment in race 1, obviously, because that, whatever, puncture, deflation.
Yeah, it's always disappointing when you're running so well, but we rebounded from that. The car, you know, we had to scrap the bits and pieces together after the first race, so it was not an ideal car. We had to compromise a little bit on the setup, but it proved to be quick. I mean, Stijn was also very quick in the second stint, so for the championship to come back for a podium, brilliant.
Well, the Audis being so equal in terms of competition, how do you actually ever manage to find a way, or can you ever find a way past one of your competitors?
I guess this is not the track for it. There's other tracks where it's definitely possible. This is probably not one of them.
Well, listen, the podiums are waiting. You get up and enjoy that champagne. Well done.
So the Attempto Racing team, Arken's team, that always used to have a very good history in Porsche racing, Carrera Cup Deutschland especially, in Porsche Super Cup, but since it came into GT racing has had a torrid time. You've got the mechanics there from WRT taking their turn on the podium for the fastest pit stops. So after race 2, there's the WRT mechanics being rewarded for some excellent pit work, but Attempto Racing now with this Audi having a very, very good stab at winning races and succeeding in so doing, a regular podium finisher. Race results: Stewart Leonard and Fred Vervisch win race 2 at Brands Hatch from Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies. Stijn Horst and Kelvin van der Linde third from Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. Christian Engelhardt fifth along with Mirko Bortolotti from Nicolas Jamin and Felix Morales. Then Loris Hesselmans and Franck Pereira. Silver Cup winner Nico Bastian and Jack Manchester. 9th Simon Gachet and Christopher Hasser in its 10th, and Norbert Siedler and Stefan Ortelli. Andrew Watson and Lucas Morais 11th, and Neil Stevenart and Marcus Winkelhock win the Pro-Am battle in 12th place. 13th for Peter Schotthorst and Pierre Catholic, ahead of Pity Biron Bacti and Carlo Van Dam after a drive-through. 15th and last, Christian Klein and Albert Costa. And then the retirements, Vantor and Stevens with mechanical dramas. Into the gravel, Caldarelli. Damage for McLeod, damage for Taylor Smith, damage for Cornet von Latwan. So Brands Hatch has thrown up plenty of talking points, and it's Stewart Leonard who leaves here in the Sprint Cup as the championship leader, only by 1.5 points over Kelvin van der Linde, who of course is second with Stijn Schotthorst. Third is Alex Rivera and Christopher Mies. Then it's Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows from Dries Vantor and Will Stevens, who've fallen back now with that retirement. They're still ahead though of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt, and Fred Vervisch having his first weekend of the year. He didn't do Zolder, his home race, but he's done Brands Hatch. Will lead here 7th in the standings. Then it's Nicolas Jamin and Felix Morales. Next, non-scoring in that second race, Ezequiel Perez Companc and Andrea Caldarelli. Robin Frins, absent, is 10th. Also absent, Alessio Picariello, Gilles Magnus. but the Sprint Series moves next to Misano at the end of June. We've got the Endurance Cup coming to Silverstone in 2 weeks' time, and then Paul Ricard first weekend of June as the drivers for the overall podium make their way out. Third already there for Stewart, Horst and Kelvin van der Linde. For second place, you've got Christopher Mies and Alex Rivera. WRT's represented on the podium as well. There, Vincent Voss and Thierry Tessin cheer their drivers to the echo as Stewart Leonard and Frédéric Verviche win at Brands Hatch. Race 2 won by Fred Verviche and Stewart Leonard. So for WRT, the Belgian team, the national anthem played for Frédéric Verviche, the Belgian driver. He can take pride in that, and Stewart Leonard winning on home soil. We'll be ready in a moment with the presentations as stepping forward. For third place, Mike Groves, the Brands Hatch circuit manager, is the man responsible for handing over the trophies for Stijn Schrothorst and Kelvin van der Linde, and now also for the second place duo of Alex Riberas and Christopher Mies to the winning team, WRT. There is the team's trophy, and then to Frédéric Verviche and to the British driver Stewart Leonard, the trophies presented. And two very happy drivers, especially Stewart Leonard, championship leader, thanks to his own efforts and also, of course, the efforts of co-driver Frédéric Verviche, and then Stefan Rattel, the founder and CEO of the SRO Motorsports Group that has done so much to look after GT racing. Stefan presents the checks for the season entrance for both endurance and sprint. He's got to do both championships to be eligible for the awards, and quite a lot of that loot goes the way of WRT. The drivers now ushered forward, ready for the presentation and the photographs, and then of course there'll be the champagne once everybody is content that they've got the photographs that they need. Endurance Cup continues in 2 weeks, 3 hours at Silverstone. And then it goes to Paul Ricard for the Saturday evening race into the dark, the 6-hour race. Always a wonderful event before we go back to the Sprint Cup at Misano, and we build up to the total 24 hours of Spa at the end of July. But for now, the celebrations are underway on the podium. We've had 2 British winners here this weekend in the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. Will Stevens, along with Dries Van Toor, winning race 1, and Stewart Leonard with Frédéric Verviche winning race 2. It has been an Audi-dominated weekend. It's been a WRT-dominated weekend. And although Lamborghini was victorious in the first sprint race of the year at Zolder, there have been few pickings for Grasser Racing Team this weekend, and it'll be fascinating to see how the team bounces back in 2 weeks' time at Silverstone. Many of these drivers will be very busy next weekend in the Nürburgring 24 hours, and it might well be that there's more silverware going the way of WRT after that, but that's a week away. The celebrations on the Brands Hatch podium, rewarding the win for Stewart Leonard and Frédéric Verviche. And as they will head to the press conference, we'll turn our attentions to looking at the highlights of race 2. It was a very busy race, and it all began quite literally with a bang. A good start by Verviche, not quite so good a start by Raffaele Marciello, and he was forced onto the outside line at turn 1, ran through the gravel with the 2 outside wheels. That compromised his run up the hill, but all the drama kicked off behind as off into the gravel was forced Andrea Caldarelli. Then the Callum McLeod Bentley was turned around. He got collected by teammate Aaron Smith, who was then collected in turn by Alexis Corneve. This is how Will Stevens saw it. He was given a biff by the BMW that came through. Mayhem ahead, and poor old Stuart Parker's team with 2 badly damaged cars that just were in the wrong place at the wrong time. When the race restarted after the safety car, it was battle on at the head of the field. Mirko Bortolotti busy defending as Fred Verviche tried to build the lead over Christopher Mies. The 2 of them ran in tandem as rattling over the curb was the Lexus from Emil Frey Racing. So it was Verviche leading. An earlier stopper was the number 1 Audi, but it was a slow stop. The car was slow to be released, and they'd also lost a bit of time on the driver change, and that perhaps cost them a race win. Verviche handed over to Stewart Leonard, who lit up the tyres on leaving the pit lane, but managed to get out ahead, only just ahead of Alex Rivera, and he was able to fend him off on the run up the hill, but only just. But this was the crucial lap of the race, because being able to maintain the advantage was Stewart Leonard. Into the pits came, and off the barrier bounced Raffaele Marciello. Not too much damage was done, whereas there was a hard charging Peter Horst going through on the inside to get past Loris Hazelman. Rattling over the curb was a radioless Alex Rivera. The team wanted to check whether he could even hear them on the radio. The answer was he couldn't. The radio wasn't working. So, battle on. Pro-Am. It looked as though Piti Bieron-Bahti might get past Neil Stevenart, but instead he lost a place to Peter Horst and couldn't fight back. And it meant that up front, WRT came through to score a 1-2. Honours to Frederik Verviche and Stewart Leonard at Brands Hatch. A great weekend of action here from John Watson and David Addison. Thanks for your company. It's bye-bye from Brands. And so now we have the Silver Cup and Pro-Am podiums underway. And it's Pro-Am won by Marcus Winkelhock and Niels Stevenart. And you've got the Silver Cup there as well. So they're all merged together. The Silver Cup having been taken by Jack Manchester and Nico Bastian. And second in the Silver Cup was Andrew Watson and Lucas Morais. And there wasn't a third. So that's why the two podiums are sort of put together. Whereas the Pro-Ams, Niels Stevenart and Marcus Winkelhock for Santilok, the victors, and they now spray the champagne. So with only 2 finishers in each category, they're all put together for that podium. Andrew Watson and Lucas Morais have had a tough weekend in the BMW, but Niels Stevenart helped certainly by that early great stint by Marcus Winkelhock coming through as the class winner, and Jack Manchester, the very tall Jack Manchester, being soaked by Nico Bastian, making amends there for putting the car off into the gravel in the first race when they were comfortably ahead in a class lead. So the drivers from the Silver Cup podium make their way off to the press conference, and that is the end of the presentations here at Brands Hatch. The 2 podiums, as I say, put together for the purposes of Pro-Am and Silver Cup. So from a sun-soaked Brands Hatch, we've had some very intriguing racing, and the championship has shuffled with Stewart Leonard leaving Brands Hatch as the championship leader. We'll see you next time. From David Addison, bye-bye.
As it stands at the moment, the red car, number 18, Phil Jenkins, did go through the lead to John Mitchell.